Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. It's great to be with you today. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, and today I think this is going to be one of our most thought-provoking shows. I've recently had an epiphany when it comes to foreign policy, what I think is effective, what I believe to be what we should be focusing on. And I think this is something that we really need to point out here, is what we focus on. We focus on so many things every day. You know, I mean, you have a busy life. I know you do. I do too. We're always shifting our focus back and forth between our life. And if you're like me, you're caught up in all the news of what's going on in the world. As I'm sure you're aware if you're listening to this program, there was a recent terrorist attack in Paris. So you have to bear this in mind when you're conducting your everyday life. You have to take this into account, and you're constantly being told by the mainstream media, look over here, now look over here, now look over here, now look over here. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about income inequality. Let's talk about just equality in general. Let's talk about gay rights, same-sex marriage. Let's talk about gun control. Let's talk about this, talk about that. But instead of doing that, what I would like to do today is to focus on root causes. Why are we seeing what we see? And this dives through so many different areas because all of these are essentially linked together through the root causes. And what you really need to know is that most of the problems that we face today are the logical extension of when someone tries to manage another problem. Essentially, most of the problems that we're facing right now are the outcome of some government program or government intervention that tried to prevent another problem, thought it was a cure to one problem, and ended up creating 50 other problems that were far worse than the original. So, I mean, we can extend this and extend this. I could do a 15-hour show and just talk about that one point right there, but I won't. What I want to focus on today is, okay, Paris has been attacked. ISIS is claiming responsibility, so how should we respond? And before we answer that, before we just go guns blazing and start doing something, as the liberals, or better yet, statists would like us to do, something happens, do something! Just do something! You need to do something right now! I don't care what it is. I don't even care if it's a good idea. I don't care if it'll hurt us in the long run. Just do something! Please! Do something! Because to a statist, doing nothing is a horrible feeling. They feel like they don't have control, and that's what it's ultimately about. The acts that the state does for statists, it's not designed to really help you in any way. It just is designed to make you feel better. To make you feel better. Again, these are the well-meaning do-gooders of the world who they genuinely have open hearts. They genuinely want something to happen. But they don't have a plan, and they aren't really connected to the issues. So, you know, just because even if what they tried did not work, they feel better. They just feel better. They're selfish. That's what this is about. It's about your selfish feelings of wanting something done, anything done at all, but not fully understanding the problem and understanding the consequences of your actions. For every action, there is a reaction. So, Paris was attacked. 129 souls are lost. 352 wounded. Last I heard, 99 of those were in critical condition. This is the largest attack on Paris since World War II. Now, in the past, I've given Paris a lot of crap. I've talked about, how cowardly they are, and how leftist they are. I mean, they're socialists over there, open borders. And now we find out that one of the terrorists involved in this plot, I believe there's 7 from latest reports I've been following. 7 terrorists have killed and wounded approximately 500 or so people. Close to it. 7. 7 people hurt this many people, killed this many people. It's staggering. It is just staggering when you think about this. And this is in a country that has extremely strict gun laws. So in this liberal fantasy, in this liberal utopia that these people are living in, there should be no guns there. There should be no guns to begin with. Because, and in fact, most of Europe is like this. So it's not even like you have to worry about that many outside neighbors affecting you, bringing in. Because this is what Obama's biggest gripe is about places like Chicago and places that have extremely bad gun violence, is that, well, it's not they're not getting the guns from in Chicago, they're getting it from somewhere else. They're getting it from outside states. That's his reason. So his rationale is if Chicago wants to have a safer city, they continue their ban on guns, which is obviously not working because it's essentially the murder capital of the United States. But I digress. In order for them to actually get what they're working on, they have to take away the rights of everybody else in the state and everybody else in the surrounding states. It all has to cascade. And again, this is the thought process. For every action, there is a reaction. And their policies fail. What they ask you and what they will continue to ask you is to give up more and more of your liberty, sacrifice your liberty in order to gain security. And every step along the way, every time that you acquiesce to what they're saying, every single time that you give up one of your rights, it's not going to work. And it hasn't. Historically, we can look back every single step along the way. Well, we just need background checks. That'll fix everything. Oh, well, the background checks didn't fix everything. So now we just need to take away your guns. Yeah, that's what we'll do. It'll make everyone safer. And then when it doesn't, then what? We've given up. We give. We compromise. We continue to sacrifice our liberty, but we get nothing in return. The so-called benefits we get for sacrificing our liberty are not benefits at all, and in fact they are consequences, and we have to face them every single day. So we don't get anything. We actually lose. Not only do we lose our freedoms, we lose our essential liberties, our natural human rights, but what they promise us never comes to fruition. This utopia never happens. These guns should have never been in Paris. According to their laws, those guns were illegal. Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable that you cannot see the writing on the wall. The guns should not have been there. The laws did not protect you. Why have the laws? Now, what will it be? You make your guns even more illegal to have? What is it? What do you do now? The answer to this that the statists only seem to understand is more regulation, more red tape, more laws, more government. That's all they get. More sacrifices upon your liberty. What else can they do other than make the guns illegal? What, are they going to do a house-by-house search? People don't have a right to not be searched for no reason at all? I don't know what kind of a Bill of Rights France has, if any. But here in America, we have the right, the freedom against unlawful search and seizure. So how exactly would any leftist really propose that works? A door-to-door search of every single home in America? I mean, let alone, I'm not even going to get into the actual expenses behind an operation like that or the logistics of how you would pull that off. But let's just talk about the constitutionality, because this is something that lefties, they don't really want to have a conversation about. Oh yeah, they want to violate your right to keep and bear arms. They would love nothing other than to just kick in your door and search your home and take your guns from you, throw you in jail. But they don't want to talk about, repealing the Fourth Amendment in order to do that, or repealing the Second Amendment in order to take your gun rights. They just want to ignore it. They want to violate the Constitution because they hate it. They hate the Bill of Rights because it's restricting their authority. The Bill of Rights is the one thing that is limiting these statists from doing anything that they want, because here's a big list of things they're not allowed to do, although they have largely made the Bill of Rights ineffective because they play the word game. It's very Animal Farm, very Orwellian. If you've read the book Animal Farm, you'll be familiar how they have laws written on their barn, and not all the animals can really read very well. We can correlate that to today, where not a whole lot of Americans are paying attention to what's going on. A lot of Americans kind of outside the political spectrum, outside the world stage, not really looking at these things. We're worried about our Monday Night Football and keeping up with Kardashian, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. I'm not judging you. But when, in the book Animal Farm, the laws start to change, and these animals aren't really that familiar with them to begin with because they can barely read, and many of them are reliant on other people to read them to them and explain to them their own laws, which is what we have going on right now. Our government is trying to change the language, change the way that we define what words mean in the Constitution in order to nullify the limitations of their own power. All right, I know I'm going off in so many directions here, but I want to just point out 7 people with guns, killed and hurt almost 500 people, 7 people. So you're telling me if even just 5 to 10% of those people had weapons, that the situation wouldn't have been different? That it couldn't have been stopped? I don't even care if it would have been stopped. I'm saying, could it have been stopped? Would there have been a potential for it to have been stopped? Now, you ask yourself, what if 50% had firearms? What if 70% of the victims had firearms? What if 100% of those victims had firearms? What would the situation look like? Do you think we'd be talking about 500 dead in Paris today? Just curious. Just wondering what you think. So we have a lot on the agenda. We're going to be going pretty deep into this. In particular, foreign policy. I have had kind of what I would call an epiphany regarding how we should act on the world stage. And I've been trying to square this circle for quite some time. How do we continue to be a geopolitical force to be reckoned with? How do we maintain a strong military and maintain our national interests while still upholding, small government values and trying to not be interventionists and play world police around the world? So in order to really answer these questions, you have to, again, as always, address the root causes. As always. And again, the mainstream media, even Republicans and Democrats alike, parties in and of themselves, interest groups, they will make attempts to blur the lines of what root causes have brought us here today. And it is my effort today to unblur these lines, to make these clear and concise arguments. And again, it's my sincere hope that today our show will be one of our most thought-provoking today. So, without further ado, today's date is November 15th, 2015. Today's show is titled 129 Dead, 352 Wounded in Paris, the Fabian Strategy, episode 95 of our program. And I just want to give a shout out to the 405 Media for simulcasting our show for the first hour over there. 405media.com, the405media.com. Shout out to you guys. And our featured topics today are Paris, France has been attacked by ISIS. So how should the world respond? National security and the real issues that affect it. Energy, allies, physical security, debt and war, immigration/refugees. ISIS is making the same mistakes as the Nazis and why it will be their downfall. We're going to have a frank conversation about radical Islam. I want to talk about free market solutions to foreign aggression and the war on terror. I want to break down what is the Fabian strategy, and I also want to talk about the differences between isolationism and interventionism, because this is what you're going to hear pretty frequently here in the debates, especially as Rand Paul. He's been coined by Marco Rubio as an as an isolationist, and I want to give you my point of view and explain to you why what I'm recommending is not isolationism nor interventionism. We can find a balance. You can strike a balance, and we'll talk about that today. As usual, you are welcome to join today's conversation by giving us a call at 360-450-5625. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. Or you can message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Message us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. Don't forget, you can also follow us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow and follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. That's where we broadcast our program every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also check us out live every Sunday as well at our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. That's where we do everything at. We post the YouTube, got all the good stuff there, so feel free to check that out for updates and stuff. Anyway, at this point, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive right into our first featured topic. So you guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, MacPack, we're back. So we have a whole lot to get to today. So Paris, France has been attacked by ISIS, and the real question on everyone's mind is, what do we do now? How do we respond? Who is our enemy? You know, the idea that you have a war on terror, which is, you know, it's not a nation. It's hard to target. How do you target terror? How do you fight terror? So It's one of those things that it can lead to a never-ending war. It can lead to just a never-ending conflict. And I don't think that any of us benefit from having a never-ending conflict, especially one where we have troops stationed overseas, people fighting, people dying, people becoming targets for terrorists. In addition to the aspects, and again, I don't put a lot of credit in this, but there is some validity here in the argument that, you know, intervention overseas does some to instigate more terrorists. So I'm not joining the Marxist professors, around the world who are saying that, oh, well, that's what you get when you go meddling in other people's business. There's some merit to this. However, I would just point out that there is a difference between people who are attacking us. For example, let's just point out the fact that there's a difference in the Muslim faith, okay, in Islam, between a radical and a moderate. Now, it's hard to spot those differences, and sometimes it may even be impossible to spot those differences between a radical Islamicist or jihadist and a moderate Muslim. Those differences do exist, and they're striking differences. One of those you can live alongside peacefully, and another one of those you cannot. The radical, they believe in the literal interpretation of the Quran and the Hadith. So what we're talking about is, disrespect towards women. Women don't have any rights. Women can be raped, and they have to have 3 or so witnesses, male witnesses of, irrefutable character, basically, to stand witness on their behalf in order for the rapist to be guilty. Women have no right to education. They can't go to school. Women can't go around in public by themselves. They can't wear clothes that reveals their skin. They are forced by Sharia law to look like beekeepers. This is just one of the small aspects of it. But the larger geopolitical aspect of it is that these people the radicals believe that they are entitled to a caliphate, that it is God's will that Islam will sweep the world. The world will be set on fire, and their imam, the 12th imam, will come back, and they will be ruling the world. And that they can, according to the literal interpretations, they can kill non-believers, they can lie to us, they can rape our women, they can do whatever they want because we are not important. This is the difference. And you can't, it doesn't matter how much you appease that. It does not matter how much you stay away from that, how much you try to back off and let them do what they're going to do. They're not hurting anybody. But no, they will hurt somebody, and they do hurt people, and they are currently hurting people. So it doesn't really matter. The side that the Marxists don't seem to get is this aspect of it. And, some people are just going to want to kill you, and it doesn't matter how nice you are to those people. They still want to kill you. But we have a caller on the line right now. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Andrew Clark.
Hey, Andrew. We were expecting your call. So, Andrew, he's been on the show before. We've had him on before when you guys were in the middle of the CPS issue. We talked about in the past, and you guys won the case. That was awesome. I was really happy for you guys. And now you wanted to call in and talk a little bit about the situation that's going on in the Middle East. And I'm assuming you had some reflections on the differences between, Islam and like a radical Islamicist and moderate Muslims. Right.
I mean, here in the West, where and like I said, I've known Muslim people in the past, and local convenience store, you have Muslims working there, and it's. I'm not saying that every Muslim is bad, but I have a problem with the cult itself. It's not just a religion. And most Westerners think it's just a religion. It's not. It's more than that. It's a political ideology that rules every aspect of their life. Now, here in the West, like in the UK, in the United States, we don't see major, anything that would put us off. In other words, these folks, they go out, and a lot of them, I've heard people say, well, hey, I have a Muslim friend, they drink alcohol, they get drunk, and they do this or that. Well, in the majority of Muslim countries, that's considered haram, and it's not acceptable. It's not considered a true Muslim. One good example I can give you in the audience is looking over at Saudi Arabia right now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story, Mac, about the two young people that are about to be beheaded and then crucified. These young people were 17 years old. And I don't know about the other boy, but one of them was 17 years old. I could pull it up on Google and look it up. This is all ongoing right now. This is something that's made international news. People are in outrage because Saudi Arabia wants to behead ahead and crucify these people and put, basically cut their heads off and then stick them up on crucifixion as a display, as a warning. And for what? Murder, rape, assault? No. All they did was protest their government during the what do you call that? Was it Arab Spring or the
Arab Spring? So let me read this here. I found this on the dailymail.co.uk. This is the story you're talking about. Second Saudi teenager set to be beheaded for protesting following international furor over the crucifixion of a 17-year-old. So this individual was arrested for protesting in Saudi Arabia in 2012, was repeatedly tortured and forced to sign confessions. Let's see. The court has upheld his conviction and sentenced him to death by beheading. This comes after the case of Namir, who faces crucifixion for protesting. So these people are literally being killed for their speech.
Right. I mean, we're talking about the 21st century Saudi Arabia. You see, if you look at, people can Google image Saudi Arabia and just do Google web searches about the technology that Saudi Arabia has. I mean, they are pretty up there with the rest of the world as far as technology, and their architecture is beyond what we have even here in America. But yet this country is still backwards in its laws and regulations. In fact, I think it was a British news agency that was interviewing the ambassador to Saudi Arabia, or he's the representative of Saudi Arabia, and they said basically they want the world to stay out of this, that this is humanitarian under Sharia law. In fact, recently, Saudi Arabia became head of I think one of their members became head of the humanitarian aspects of the United Nations. Now, they say that Sharia, in response, they say Sharia law, Islamic law, is the most humanitarian of laws in this earth. This is something that, I don't care if you're liberal, atheist, gay, straight, it don't matter. This is something that people need to wake up to, because we can argue these things later down the line, but right now we have a bigger enemy to face, and that's one that wants to impose this upon us, and through a slow, methodical process. We're talking about years, decades, that this has been going on, whether it be through the MSA on the college campuses, CARE. My wife's sister was in, a Catholic college or St. Louis University, and she came over to our house one day on vacation, and she had a Muslim Student Association shirt on. I mean, it's no big deal. And she's Catholic, but they're impressing upon our young people and pushing it hard, and that was their goal decades ago, and I can prove that fact. I mean,
I completely agree with you, and it's evident. I mean, you can see what they're doing by introducing Sharia law movements in our colleges, which again, I've mentioned before. This is one thing that we as conservatives or libertarians, liberty-minded people, are truly failing at right now. Our colleges are out of control. They're out of control, and I'm speaking from as a college student. I have to face a onslaught of Marxist professors, followed by statist classmates who do nothing but agree with these people who hate America and everything it stands for. But yet they stand up in front of a podium or something, and they think that that they are smart and pithy because they're degrading America and talking down upon us and saying that we don't have a right to disagree, really. And then when you say something, you get shouted down by people. I mean, this is what's going on in our college campuses, everyone. First of all, if you think that you're not in a position to be able to handle that, I don't recommend going to college at that point. But I have no problem disagreeing with people. I have no problem talking with people, and trying to maybe work them over and see if I can get them on our side or not. Show them the facts. Some people, it's like talking to a brick wall. It doesn't matter how many facts you have, they're not going to listen. But we have to take back our college campuses or abandon them completely. But just know that if we continue down the path and the college campuses stay where they are, this will and is currently filtering out into the greater society. So don't be surprised if the population turns completely left, because this is what they're being taught.
Right, Mac, and on that same point that you made, I would like to reiterate, or I guess strengthen your pose on that, is with the recent recent Duke University controversy. I don't know if you're aware of it, where they were talking about going to the church bell towers in Duke University, which is, a Christian monument. I don't, Christian, atheist, it's regardless. But the fact that the Muslims petitioned, the Muslim student organization petitioned to be allowed to call the daily prayer from the roof, or the bell tower, which is really high up in the air, over to the whole school. It's a way of saying Islam has taken this area. It's in any Muslim majority country, the call to prayer in any region is basically saying this is our territory, and they were wanting to do that at Duke University. Fortunately, the judge reversed it, and from what I am aware of, from what I researched the other day, and I could be wrong, but from what I researched, they are allowed to do the Muslim call to prayer, but they have to do it at the bottom of the bell tower on the ground. They're not going to be allowed to actually do what they wanted to do, which is call the prayer on a megaphone, a large speaker system, across the campus. Wow. From the church bell tower.
This is a very dangerous ideology. Look, I have no problem whatsoever with any kind of religion as long as it's not trying to force its will upon others. And if you are a Muslim who believes in the literal interpretations of the Quran and the Hadith, and you believe that it's okay to kill non-believers, you believe that women don't have rights, it's okay to rape infidels, it's okay to lie to us and kill us. If this is what you believe, then your religion is evil. This is not, and I'm not afraid to say this. I do not care. That kind of thing is not a religion of peace. However, there are reformers within, and I don't know the percentages of who is moderate and who is radical, but I do know that there are two sides of this coin. There's reformers inside, the Muslim faith, just like there were reformers inside the Christian faith back during the Crusades, when we used to think, as Christians, and I'm not really a Christian, but I associate more with them than anybody. And we used to think that it was okay to kill people who did not believe the same thing as us. So, convert or die. That was
absolutely, and I agree with you there. I've had a challenge of faith lately. I still believe in my own spiritual views. I don't have to share them here, but I'm not. I was raised in a cult similar to Islam. I don't know if I've ever told you about that. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness as a child. Where I draw similarities is, we would go door to door. I was one of those people that was a young kid. They usually set you out with an adult, whether it be a child female with an adult female, or a young child with adult male, and we go door to door preaching, And I got a lot of interesting questions at the door, but, more so, when I started to see the truth behind the so-called truth, they believe they're the only true religion in the whole earth, and that everybody in Armageddon is going to die except for the Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, Islam believes the same thing. The Jews will die, the Christians will die, and Islam will be placed as the only true religion. Even the moderate Muslim believes in the Hadith, the Bukhari Hadith, that says when the end of the time comes, they'll fight Jews, and the rocks and the trees will cry out, there's a Jew hiding behind me. These are authentic books that, there's a lot of debate amongst different Muslim segments as to which Hadiths are authentic and which are not. But this is one that's not up for debate. This is what the end-time prophecy for even the most moderate of Muslims believes, that in the end time they will fight the Jews because they followed the Antichrist. They believe Jesus will come back, and he's going to be the one that slaughters them off with swords and will come behind. That's a little deep maybe for the audience. They can probably research in their own time, but the comparison I'm trying to make is with Jehovah's Witnesses, it's the same thing. We go to your door, Mac. I come up to your door, I'll knock on it, and you'll say, well, I'm a Baptist. Why is my religion wrong? And I come back and show you things in the Bible, what we're programmed to show you guys, give you certain specific scriptures. They have a big, long list of preparations as far as questions and answers that when someone at the door poses something that you're not sure of. Worst case scenario, you would tell them that you need to talk to you would need to research further, which means you need to talk to the elders or the higher-uppers in the Jehovah's Witness cult.
Well, let me stop you there. I want to just ask this question here. At any point in the Jehovah's Witness ideology, is it okay to kill a non-believer?
No, not under this law, but I remember as a child wanting to do away with apostates in the lesser terms. I know that other young people that I associated with in that cult, because of the speeches and talks that they give in the Kingdom Halls, they call them kind of like Freemasonry, the halls, the meeting halls. They would speak about apostasy, and they said in this. I remember a preacher, not preacher, because I even been up on stage and gave my own talks. They involve everybody. If you're 10 years older, you go up there and you can give as a male anyway, only men. You can go up there and give a talk to the whole congregation, and I did many of these talks. And I remember one talk that an older man gave was talking about apostasy, and they said, unfortunately now, in the time we live in, we cannot kill the apostates. But if they could, they would, Mac.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't know
a
whole lot about it.
World. They wouldn't. They can't do that here.
I just don't want to go too far in the weeds here and start talking about. I think we have a bigger conversation going on than Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
So
in comparison, it's very similar though.
Yeah.
They're against apostasy, and back in those days, they taught us, even as Jehovah's Witnesses, that apostasy meant death.
Mm-hmm.
If you drop out, you're gone. You're out of it. Then.
And I stand against any religion that would call for hurting other people who are not hurting them. I have no problem with you defending yourself, but if you're the aggressor, that's where I have the issue. I essentially just follow the non-aggression principle, the NAP.
I would agree.
So regardless, I can live peacefully next to a Muslim as long as that Muslim doesn't want to kill me, and that is where the problem here lies. So regardless of this dynamic, how do we, and how would you recommend this, Andrew? How do we tell the difference? How do you figure out the difference between a moderate and a radical?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I guess before I branched off, that's kind of where I made a comparison. Is behind closed doors, my parents and us as children would discuss worldlings, which are non-Jehovah's Witnesses like you and me. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness any longer since 16 years old. I'm 41 now, or about to be 41. It's behind closed doors. You don't know what they're saying because it's the ideology that's behind it. It's like they'll come to your face at your door and be nice to you, or in your workplace and talk about Jehovah and about the new world system of things and about peace and that. But when the doors are closed and they're at home, it's all this. My mother always, and she's still a staunch Jehovah's Witness. My wife has had to listen to this when we lived with them before, talking about how Catholics are all fake and that they go to war against each other. From one country to another, Catholics are fighting each other, or Baptists are fake in their it's ridiculous how they talk. And this is not just my mother. This is others. As a child, would go spend time over at other Jehovah's Witnesses' houses, and that's how the adults talk behind closed doors. So I don't know how to solve this because we don't have any other way unless we can read minds or
exactly.
Hook them to a machine. How do we know? Maybe we need to. Me and my wife were talking about the refugee invasion or / crisis, and I'm thinking, well, if you come here in those kind of terms, or if you're an illegal immigrant, maybe you should be tagged. Whew. If you really are fleeing a country of that kind of oppression and your life is in danger, then maybe you should be willing to take a tag where we can track your ass. Sorry. I mean, I'm just being realistic about it.
No. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I just don't think it's the right solution.
By an immigrant that was supposed to be deported 3 times for the 3rd time.
And again,
Bill O'Reilly on the news, he did 2 episodes of my friend. And then Justice with Judge Janine did a story on my friend that was killed by an illegal immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ridiculous. The guy should have been gone. He was a snitch for the Mexican cartels, and that's why our agencies here in the United States, under the DOJ, Eric Holder, released this boy, or man, back onto the street where he showed up at a party where his estranged wife was and ended up shooting my friend at the end of it all. And I mean, we're in a state of disparity right now. We can't stop anybody from coming over the borders. They're not just, Mexican immigrants. We got people from Pakistan that hate our country coming over here. Lebanon. We can't stop it. And I don't know what the solution is, Matt. Is there a solution?
I think one of the biggest solutions that we can do is to not do something without thinking about all the consequences that can arise from it. And by the way, I just want to say thanks a lot for your call, Andrew.
Everybody, we can't sit there. And Trump's talking about getting rid of all the immigrants and shift them back. But no, just freaking, we tag and like we used to back in the 70s and 80s, find out if they got their papers. If they don't, then we can allow them to stay here, with an exception of, okay, you're here illegally, we're not going to send you back and push you out of your family's life. That'd be wrong. Humanitarian, that'd be wrong. But
I disagree with you on that one. If you're here illegally,
I mean, we have different opinions. That's fine, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, as far I understand where you're coming from. I just disagree. If you're here illegally, you violated the law to get here, so you should be sent back, and you shouldn't be allowed to return. It's my opinion. If you've violated a federal law, which is a felony. I don't think that you should be given a second chance. You shouldn't get to stay. All that does is that's amnesty. I mean, that's what it is. That's the definition of amnesty, is forgiving somebody for an offense. So, and
that's what I want, Mac. But and I agree with you there. I just really hard to understand. I mean, I want a solution for that. We can't. I mean, we can maybe. I mean, how can we? How can we? You're talking about millions of people that are already here.
So let's deal with this at the root cause, okay? Because this is one of the things I want to get to. Why do we care about anything that goes on the world, around the world? And you can't say it's because of humanitarian reasons, because that's just not true. If that was true, we would be in places like Africa and places all around the world that don't have a very big impact on us geopolitically. They're not a threat to us, but there is a lot of human suffering going on, and we don't give a crap because it doesn't matter to us. So
right.
It's not about humanitarian reasons. And just like this crisis that's going on, that they're calling it a migrant crisis or a refugee crisis, where it's actually not. There is a distinction that should be made here and pointed out. When you arrive, you are fleeing from one country, in this case Syria. Let's assume that they're leaving from Syria, even though that's actually not the case. A lot of these guys are leaving from other countries. So they arrive in another country from their original country, and then they are a refugee because they're fleeing war, if there was a war. So they're fleeing. That makes them a refugee. The moment you decide to leave that first country and try to find a better life for yourself in Europe, trying to go to countries like Sweden and Germany that have higher welfare states, and you'll be able to get more from the government and have a better life that way. The moment you start doing this, you're not a refugee anymore. You're what's called an immigrant. And there are laws when it comes to immigration. So we should deal with that as it is. This is an influx of immigrants trying to come around. A refugee is somebody who goes to one country temporarily until a conflict is over and then goes home. That's what a refugee is. Well, they can't.
Exactly, Max. I mean, that's the big problem. And why is this happening under this administration? Why have we had such a huge number of an influx of these so-called refugees? And most of them are young men between the ages of 17 to 45.
And it's scary because we already know that they're sending out terrorists in this flood of over 800,000 bodies. Now, this is happening right now. You just mentioned the administration. This is happening right now because interventionist policies are failing. And we're going to get to that. First of all, thanks so much for your call. We actually got to run. We're going to cut to a commercial break, but I just want to say thanks for giving us a call, Andrew.
You're welcome, man. Thank you.
All righty. Take care. All right. But, yeah, we're going to get to these interventionist policies coming up when we come back from the break. And we're going to actually hit more on the featured topics here. We're going to get back on task and talk about, what should we do? How should we respond? And in order to get there, we have to get to the root causes. How did we get to this point? Why is there a human flood of refugees coming from Syria? And why are they being called refugees when they're moving from their first country that they flee to the rest of the European Union? Why are they not being called what they actually are, which is immigrants? And what can we do? What can we do from this point? We identify the root causes, and then we have to come up with solutions. We're going to talk about that when we get back. Anyway, you guys don't want to miss this next segment. We'll be right back.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back, gang. So we are at a crossroads right now. We need to make a decision based on facts, based on logic, on where we're going to go as a country. What are we going to do? How are we going to respond? Because what we're doing right now and what we have been doing is clearly not working. This administration has destabilized the Middle East. They've essentially performed a coup in Syria. All of this is after this administration foolishly left Iraq against the advice of his advisors, knowing that it would destabilize and collapse and further cascade the spread of Islam in the Middle East. Radical Islam, that is. So now we have a three-way war that's going on in Syria, caused as a result of our destabilizing of the Middle East. We are the reason why this has happened. Our interventionist policies are the reason why this has happened. So we have to at least look at the policies, find out what they are, what got us to this point. Because the truth of the matter is that this is all a result of these policies. And the policies are the result of statist thinking. Statists think that they can manage everything. They think that they can manage your everyday life. They think they can manage the economy. They think they can manage the world. And every time that they have a failure, they'll try to do it again, and they'll say, well, this time we'll do it right. Last time we didn't have the right managers in place. This time we do. This time we're smarter. This time we've learned our lessons. Yet they continue doing the same thing over and over again, continue to manipulate. What's happening in the Middle East, what we're doing, and this is the most important point. You have to understand what we're doing and why. Why are we doing what we're doing? It has absolutely nothing to do with humanitarian reasons. Has absolutely nothing to do. So how do we get there? Why are we there? What are our motivations pertaining to the Middle East? Why are we there? Why do we care? What's going on in the Middle East? This place has been a hot zone of war forever. I mean, this place is always on fire. So why do we care? Well, it's certainly not because we care about people over there, because we don't give a crap about anybody in Africa. We're not worrying about lives saved. In fact, we're actually taking lives from people over there. You know, if you look at the civilian casualties caused by our war efforts over there, let's be honest. You know, I know we're not trying to kill them. We're not trying to cause civilian casualties, but we are. So it can't really be about saving lives, and especially when you start saying, well, you know, It's about saving lives. If that's all you say it's about, well, then we have lost more soldiers over there, especially if we're talking about American lives. Well, they took our American lives in 9/11, so let's go get them. So as a result, 3,000 Americans die in 9/11. Horrible, terrible attack. And our response is to send boots on the ground over there. And we have over, from last I remember, I think it's over 7,000 Americans dead as a result of this never-ending war on terror. 7,000. So if your argument is the fact that let's not even include the lives of the Iraqis or the Middle Eastern people, humanitarian reasons. If you're just, we got to get people back for taking American lives. Well, as a result now, we have more than doubled the amount of American lives lost as a result of radical Islam. So it's actually not doing what you intended. You're not saving American lives. In fact, more Americans are dying as a result of boots on the ground. So it doesn't seem to be a very good strategy. Why are we there? If it's not really about that, what is it about? Two reasons. Two reasons that you have to understand to completely understand the reasons for us being there. Number one is oil. Now, I'm not saying we're there to take the oil out of the ground and take it back and we have ownership of this oil. But no, we're playing shadow games. We are playing Game of Thrones right now in the Middle East. We're trying to pick sides. This is what Russia's doing. This is what a proxy war is you pick sides and you start supporting that side monetarily and through weapon technology, and you prop them up and you fill the power vacuum with your guy, and then once that guy's in power, he allows you to have control or at least access to the oil. And what I mean by that is they agree that they will sell the oil in U.S. dollars. That's why they're put in power, so that they can be a stabilizing force. It doesn't matter how oppressive of a force that new government is that we've created. We don't care. That's why we tolerated Saddam. That's why we tolerated Muammar Gaddafi. We don't care how much, and that's why we're tolerating Saudi Arabia. They're killing their people right now for protesting. They stone homosexuals in the streets. Women do not have rights. They have to dress like beekeepers. This is what I'm talking about. We are selling our soul for oil. And we're not trying to conquer the territory ourselves and do it like it was in the old days. If you won the war, might was right. That land was yours. And people would claim it. That's what happened with Rome. They went around and they spread their kingdom. They spread their empire. So now we don't do it that way because, international norms, international law, things look bad that way. Well, we're performing coups and putting our guys in power in an effort in order to get oil, to secure American access to oil. And then the second reason why we're there is to stick it to Russia. Because if we have access to oil, that means that Russia doesn't. And if Russia has access to oil, that means that we don't. Or there's a potential that Russia could cut us off. Russia already has, and Ronald Reagan spoke out about this when it was happening, when it was being built, the European pipeline. Russia has control over the European pipeline. I believe China has plans to get access to a shoot off of that pipeline. So Russia's going to control the oil for China and already does control the oil for Europe through this pipeline. And if they have access to the Middle East, if we just abandon the Middle East, the way that our leaders look at this is that we're handing over all of the oil to Russian hands. And that is problematic in their eyes. The way that they look at this is that, oh crap, we're going to lose out on all these resources and Russia's going to be able to hold the world hostage. Therefore, Russia will be able to manipulate our allies and our friends and all of that. They'll be able to strong arm people and say, you'll do what I want or I'll restrict all the oil. So this is why we're here. Again, it's not humanitarian reasons. If it was humanitarian, we'd be fighting North Korea right now because they're literally starving their people to death. They're starving their people to blindness. Children are blind because of malnutrition in North Korea. People are killed all the time in North Korea who oppose the government. If you speak out, you're dead. You try to run away, they catch you, they kill you. That is an oppressive regime. So if we really cared about humanitarian reasons, if that was our only reason for getting involved in the Middle East, well then it doesn't make sense. We would be everywhere. We cannot be the world police. So we have to be truthful about ourselves, to ourselves, and about our motivations. So let's have a frank conversation here. I want to talk specifically about national security and the real issues that affect it, okay? So in relation to this, we have to start with energy. Energy is why we are fighting in the Middle East. So essentially what it boils down to is if we could produce our own energy, if we could get independent from foreign oil, if we could even get to the point where we could export energy, maybe we could be, independent from this conflict. Maybe we wouldn't have a need to actually have boots on the ground in Iraq. Now, I'm not saying that we don't attack terrorism when it rears its ugly head. You know, in my opinion, if a terrorist cell is known to be operating in a specific province, you ask the government of that area, if there is one, to take care of it. If they refuse, you bomb the living hell out of that area. If it's a threat to you, if it is actually a threat to you. Now, if it's just a bunch of guys running around on, over obstacle course and monkey bars, it doesn't really pose that significant of a threat. But if you start talking about situations like nations that are building nuclear weapons, like Iran, maybe that could be a different conversation. But I digress. Let's get back to energy. If we're able to control and produce our own energy, to export our own energy, to be energy independent, we have no need for the Middle East anymore. And we are sitting on extremely large oil reserves. Extremely large oil reserves here. And in some ways, it's good that we haven't tapped into them, really. We haven't unleashed that because they're still there. They're virtually untouched. We have limited offshore drilling. We have limited Alaskan drilling. There's so much oil in Alaska. We have limited and restricted fracking through regulation. Natural gas. There's so much energy, fossil fuel energy, that we have at our disposal right now. But in addition to that, there are also new and innovative ways that we can get energy production. The other day, I think it was last week, we were having the conversation on the show, and I was talking about that documentary, Billions in Change. One of the most fascinating things, and I think it really needs to be discussed, is this innovation of being able to use the energy that is produced from the core, at the core of the earth. As Al Gore says, those billions of degrees of the core of the earth is because of the SUVs. And look, it's really freaking hot in the middle of the earth. You got lava, you got magma, all that good stuff, all right? And it's free energy. It's hot. It burns. So they figured out this metal that is it's a superconductor. If you heat up, one end of it to 1,000 degrees, a mile away, the other end of this metal will be 1,000 degrees. Perfectly the same temperature all the way through. It's it's an extremely good conductor. So it's called graphene. And it's a byproduct, I think, of graphite. So essentially, what they want to do is and these are innovators in the documentary that on Billions in Change. You can actually watch it yourself. I think it's billionsandchange.com. They want to drill a hole all the way down to the center of the earth where the lava is, and stick this graphene down and have it conduct the heat energy up to the surface. Once it does that, you can boil water, produce steam to turn turbines, which we're already using right now as a technology to produce limitless energy. Limitless energy. This is just one way to get energy independent off of fossil fuels. Not even including the massive amount of fossil fuels we already have. But I'm noticing we're ending the first hour, so I'm going to go ahead and just say to the 405media.com, I appreciate you guys sticking with us over there. If you want to check out the rest of the show, check us out at OnTheMoveShow.com. And Anyway, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to come back to the real issues that affect security. We're going to talk about national security, energy, allies, physical security, debt and war, immigration/refugees. So we'll be right back, gang. You don't want to go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, gang. So, energy. We have a lot of energy sitting under our feet. Fossil fuels, Alaska. And by the way, the pipeline, the XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline, Obama just shut it down. Just no, not going to do that. Even though it will create about 100,000 jobs, even if it is temporary, nobody's saying it's a smoking gun cure to our economic ills. But it sure wouldn't hurt. Those 100,000 people who would be employed would be better off. And even the U.S. government, their own reports have said that the Keystone XL pipeline will not increase any kind of ecological impact on the environment. It won't increase the carbon footprint, essentially, is what they're saying, because this oil is already being pumped. Canada is already extracting this oil, and it will be sent out to the market somehow. Instead, what they're looking to now is Warren Buffett's trains to transport barrels of oil now. And if these environmentalists really cared about the environment, they would realize that trains are vastly more polluting than a pipeline. The motors that it takes, the pumps that it takes to push the oil, does not take hardly any energy when in comparison to a train. Several trains, many trains, hauling barrels of oil back and forth across the country. The difference is night and day. If you're worried about carbon footprint, well, right there, you've increased your carbon footprint tremendously. But again, they don't really care about that. This is all show. Everything that they're doing, we're dying from 1,000 cuts. It's not one that kills us. It's the 50 more that continue, and then more and more and more. And every time they're like, hey, I got an idea. Instead of, I'm going to fix this cut you got here by making a bigger one over here, and it'll get your mind off that one. Oh, that didn't work? Now you're just thinking about all of them. Let me try another big one. I'm just going to continue to cut you, and it's not working. I can't figure it out. It's like that scene in Talladega Nights where they use the knife to get the other knife out of Ricky Bobby's leg. He's like, here, I'm just going to wedge it out. I'm going to do like a lever motion to pull it out. It's so ridiculous. Their policies, every single one of these policies that the government tries to do, whatever it's for, it doesn't really matter what it's for. Again, climate change. This one with the trains, their attempt is to combat climate change. You know, and as Obama, for some reason, Obama actually believes. I can't even say it. Obama actually believes that the biggest threat to our national security is climate change. Climate change. I mean, this guy is a certain kind of special. I gotta say it. Here's Obama talking about how climate change is a security threat to our country.
Climate change will impact every country on the planet. No nation is immune. So I'm here today to say that climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security, an immediate risk to our national security. And make no mistake, it will impact how our military defends our country. And so,
okay, so sorry, I can't take that very long. He had a lot more to say on the subject, but look, the idea here is that every single thing that they're doing ends up going against what they say it's for. It goes against the purpose of what they're stating. So in this case, with the Keystone XL pipeline, it's going to pump at a very low energy and carbon footprint cost oil into America. It's going to benefit us economically just because we'll be having the oil transported through our country. That would be pretty important for us. And secondly, the jobs that will be created, and somebody's got to build, somebody's got to maintain all this stuff. There will be employment on this for the foreseeable future if that would have happened. But instead, what do they do? Because they're concerned about climate change and carbon dioxide emissions, they're going for trains to haul this across the country instead. That is exactly the opposite of what their stated goal is to prevent this, to limit carbon into the atmosphere. They're actually making more. This is just like the war on poverty, how it has increased poverty. The war on drugs actually made drug use rampant. It made it worse. The war on terror. Does that seem to be getting any better, guys? Anybody? Anytime there's a war on something, it seems like the government just basically has opened the floodgates to make the situation worse. So let's get real about this, okay? If we're talking about the real issues that affect our national security, energy is by far the most important. It would, if we were independent, if we were energy independent, we're producing our own energy, we don't have to worry about the Middle East stability. It's not our problem anymore. If Russia wants to take it, go ahead, Russia. Enjoy that. Hopefully it doesn't turn out like it happened to you in Afghanistan back in the 70s. I hope that works out for you, Russia. And then specifically, people are concerned about how Russia would be strong-arming the rest of the world with this energy. Well, if we're producing energy, we have our own energy, and we are exporting said energy, we're creating a clear choice amongst the world because, let's be real, people, there are superpowers. There are superpowers in the world, and it's people who are positioning themselves to be so. So, basically, we got Russia, we got China, we got us. That's basically a superpower. China is really just worried about their area of operation. China isn't trying to expand like Russia is. Russia wants to expand. Russia wants to strong-arm people. Russia wants to control. They are not a good actor. China is not a good actor either. They're more concerned about controlling their people because they realize that if they become destabilized, if they get involved in too much overseas, there's too much instability around them, if they get attacked on the homeland, all of this stuff, China realizes that if any instability can cause some severe problems to their country because they have a revolutionary past, they're hanging on by a thread. They have too many people to try to control, and they're concerned about that. So Russia, they're bad actors, all right? And if you give the world the choice to choose between somebody who's strong-arming them and somebody who's willing to trade openly with them, if you need oil, Russia won't sell you the oil. They're twisting your arm trying to get you to do stuff. Well, come over here. We'll sell you oil. I have no problem selling you oil. We should sell oil to anyone who wants it that is not directly opposing us, that's not our militarily opposing us, or that is not threatening us, somebody who's not a bad actor or an on our enemy list. How about that? State sponsor of terrorism or something along those lines. We shouldn't be trading with those people. Just like, I choose not to do business with Starbucks because I don't like them. I don't like their policies. I don't agree with their philosophy. And I think their coffee's also not very good, so it's not a big sacrifice on my part. But still, I work diligently to not spend any money at Starbucks because I disagree with Starbucks, especially in relation to open carry. So just like that, as an individual, we as a collective, as a country, we have a right not to do business with countries that are contrary to our values. All right? So if we really want to send a message to the world that, we're not going to be associated with evil people, all right? For example, I don't think that we should deal with Saudi Arabia. I wouldn't personally. I would not have it. I would leave the Middle East, and I would have nothing to do. If we were energy independent, I would leave the Middle East, and I would have nothing to do with anyone who oppresses their civilians. Anyone who oppresses their citizens, I would not have anything to do with that government. I wouldn't trade with them. I would trade with countries who did not oppress the people, had respect for human rights, and that would be a requirement. That would be the first requirement for me to trade with you. Now, yeah, we may get hurt in that, but morally, I mean, I think that we can make that argument. I think that there is some level of pain that you and I would both be willing to feel. All of us would be willing to feel if we knew why we were doing it. If it was for that reason, well, we're not going to do business with Saudi Arabia anymore, because they oppress their people, because they kill people for using their free speech. They stone homosexuals in the street. Even the left would be on board with that. But instead, we try to bargain with the devil in order to create stability to get this energy and stick it to Russia. So we'll get further into this, but let's go back to the allies. Our friends. We've got Japan, United Kingdom, Australia, Israel, to name a few. There's more out there. But we have countries that are our friends that don't ideologically fit in with Russia. And I think Russia would be strong-arming them and would pose a threat to them in this position of us leaving the Middle East, Russia taking over the Middle East. A lot of you are probably confused where I'm going. Well, what are you going to do then? What's going to happen? What would happen? We'll talk more about this. But our allies, focus on the allies for right now. Our allies will be looking for people where they fit in, and we'll be looking for people that fit in with us. I think we should leave the United Nations. I think that it is it's not a worthwhile investment of our time. I think that we should start our own program, our own essentially our own United Nations, but essentially just free people coming together to work together as a coalition for liberty, for each other's security. And this is where we really need to be at. We need to draw the lines. Now, I'm not talking about the red lines that Obama says where we need to be prepared to go kill people in Syria because they use chemical weapons on their own people. Again, we don't really care about humanitarian wars. We don't. Even as a people, I don't want to send our American troops to go kill somebody in Syria for the way that they killed their people. That's essentially. We don't care that they've killed thousands of people through conventional weapons, but the moment that you use chemical weapons, I'm going to draw a red line in the sand, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to attack you. You better be careful. I'm going to attack you. Look, we don't care. Let's be intellectually honest. What happens over there is not our business. All right? It's not. Now, it's one thing to stick your head in the sand. That's one thing. To pretend that it doesn't exist. Again, once it becomes a threat, take it out. If you have intelligence that there's something going on over there that is a threat, there's a big group of militants over there that are coming together to plan attacks or train or something, if you have an opportunity to take them out, take them out. I have no problem with that. Blow those mothers up. No problem with me. But again, I don't think that we should be putting boots on the ground. I don't want to be in the nation building business. I want to be in the being free and trying to be left alone business. And if anybody messes with us, we kill them. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Now, granted, I'm blurring some lines there myself, but back to the allies. Okay, if we have allies, we have to discuss with them. We have to have a foreign reset. If we're really serious about national security, we have to draw our lines in the sand, not like Obama did, but finding out what is worth fighting for, what's worth dying for. You know, draw your line in the sand and find out who of our allies are willing to go to bat for us. What are they bringing to the table? Are they bringing anything to the table? Is there some kind of benefit to us to have an alliance with these people, a strategic alliance where if they're attacked, we will defend them and vice versa? Because there's a whole lot of merit in that. And I am the kind of person that I will draw the line in the sand for that. If we find out where we're going to fight, if, for example, if we have an alliance with Israel and Israel gets attacked and they're being messed up by other countries, Arab nations around them, we should go in. We should fight upon their behalf and bail them out. Now, I don't want to get into the nation building. I think we should go drop a few bombs, kill some people, get out. It's your problem, Israel. We just you can take care of the aftermath. We're just trying to help out our ally so you don't die. These are things that we need to discuss. Is that a red line that you're willing to fight for? Is that something you're willing to send our men and women to die for? If not, maybe we have these conversations. We as a country start talking about what is our red lines. What alliances are worth fighting for? What alliances are worth dying for? And do these people feel the same way? In addition to that, what's going on with the foreign aid? We're giving billions and billions of dollars in foreign aid to people that don't like us. Countries like Pakistan, they freaking hate us. They hid Osama bin Laden over there for years. Yeah, right. We're supposed to believe that they didn't know that Osama bin Laden was like a few miles away from what is essentially their West Point Academy, their biggest training academy for their military, for their officers. We're supposed to believe that they didn't know that he was in a huge facility, walled in. People are burning trash inside, acting really suspicious. Nobody sees who's inside. We're supposed to believe that they didn't know that he was there. Yeah, right. And we're giving him billions and billions of dollars. So instead of investing billions and billions of dollars into people who hate our freaking guts, we could take that money, invest in it at home. By the way, in case you weren't aware, some of the threats that we face, one of the biggest ones is an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse. Did you know that it only takes a couple 100 million or billion? I can't remember exactly here. Let me actually Google this while I'm mentioning this here. But to harden our power grid, it doesn't take a whole lot of money in comparison to the let me see here. Power grid. Sorry, I'm typing this out. EMP cost. Okay. Of course, it's not right there. Anyway, 100 million according to WashingtonBlog.com. I don't know if this is true. It would only cost 100 million. Let's say a few hundred million. We're spending billions and billions of dollars in foreign aid, and we could take some of that money to harden our power grid and protect it from EMP, electromagnetic pulse. This is one of the largest disasters that could happen here in our country. It could essentially set us back to the Stone Age. Lots of people would die if this happened. And we've done nothing to defend ourselves against it. And we have the capability. It's only a couple $100 million to actually invest in hardening our electrical grid, our power grid, and protecting it from EMP. But we haven't done it, but we're giving billions and billions of dollars in foreign aid to countries that hate us. So we can stop that. We only give money to people instead of trying to bribe them in order to give us access to their oil, because this is what it's about. Trying to bribe people into liking us. And they don't. They just take our money and they use it against us. So how about we use that money on ourselves, protect ourselves, help our allies with that, invest it into our military to make sure that we're strong. Cut out some of the waste within our own military, and some of that waste is boots on the ground in wars in countries where people hate us, and we're trying to nation build. Look, I know if we leave Afghanistan, it's going to collapse on itself. There's going to be a power vacuum that's going to be filled. And then what will happen is radical Islam will spread further. That's what will happen, yeah. But we created that problem by destabilizing the region in the first place. That's what we did. This is our problem. This is what we did. I don't know if we necessarily should leave Afghanistan right now. I don't think we probably should until we know that they can manage their own security on their own, because otherwise everything that we've done, all the blood, sweat, and treasure that we have spent working on that has been for nothing. And I have a hard time trying to square that. Too many lives have been lost for it to mean nothing. Now, again, this is why I'm against intervening, being interventionist, participating in coups. This is why I'm against it, because it gets you in this position, well, crap, now we're here. What do we do now? If we leave, it's just going to destabilize further. So I think in terms of Afghanistan, we need to really bulk that up. As far as make sure that it doesn't fall into radical terrorist hands. But we can stop pumping billions of dollars into economies that hate us. And instead, we can invest it in our allies and into energy programs. Instead of doing that, how about we just, instead of subsidizing energy sectors, stuff like that, let's not do that. I don't think that's a good idea. Instead of doing that, how about we just don't collect that tax money in the first place, which will create an economic boom, because that means that you'll still have that money left in your pocket. All of us will. We'll have more money to spend on goods and services, which will mean more jobs will be created, which means that our economy will be booming, which means good things for us. But again, everything has to be restricted. Everything has to be controlled. Everything has to be managed. A statist agenda must prevail. You can tweak. You can fix. You can nudge. You can push. You can guide people in the direction you want them to go, and there will be no consequences according to the left. It's just not true. So what are the other real issues that affect national security? Well, obviously physical security. And how do you really fix physical security? Because in terms of the nation, one of the things that I thought and I was led to believe, and I was wrong. I don't like this argument anymore. I used to think it was a good idea that we fight them over in the Middle East, because it's better than them coming here to attack us. But as we see from what happened in Paris, again, 129 dead, 352 wounded from 7 terrorists. 7, according to the latest reports. As we see, they are projecting their force outward. They're not just content with trying to create their own state, ISIS. They're not just content with fighting us in the Middle East. They want to bring the fight home, and they're also going after Russia too. If you believe the plane that was shot down was or that was blown up out of the sky, excuse me. If you believe that was actually ISIS, even though ISIS did claim responsibility, as they did with these Paris attacks as well. So 200 or so Russians died in a plane attack that was, again, ISIS claimed responsibility for, and now ISIS is out attacking people in Paris. They're not happy just fighting over in the Middle East anymore. They want to attack us here. We destabilized. They took over. They filled the power vacuum. They sent a bunch of refugees up north. A lot of people who were not even involved in the conflict at all, just looking for a better life. You're not a refugee once you leave. now this cascade, this flow of human beings, 800,000, is crossing the borders to the north to these welfare states, Germany, Sweden. By the way, Sweden is now the highest occurrence of rape in the, I think it's in the world, if I'm remembering that stat correctly, because again, Islamicists can rape infidels and it's okay. They don't. It doesn't matter. It's not. They're not real people. They're subhuman, right? According to a jihadist, a non-believer is subhuman. They're not real. You can do whatever you want to them. You can lie to them. You can steal from them. You can rape them. You can kill them. So we notice a uptick in rape in Sweden, and again, Paris is suffering right now, partially because they've allowed a flow of immigrants into their country, and let's be honest here. One of the terrorists was one of these so-called refugees. So physical security begins with controlling who's coming into your country. Physical security also comes to with protecting foreign, because you have two different kinds of threats when you're talking about national security. You have foreign governments, so you can have a navy, protect from invasion. You can have an air force. You can have, in my opinion, the best bet would be to have militias of armed citizenry who are trained, and they have their own weapons and they can respond. I think that is the best idea. I think just average citizens carrying firearms, even if you're not in a militia, I think that is a good idea, because the Japanese, they did not invade the homeland of America. They did not invade us at home because they were concerned that there would be a man, woman, and child behind every blade of grass with a gun. That's why they didn't come here. They thought that they would be in a never-ending guerrilla war, and they very likely would have been. So it's something to actually really point out here that armed citizens prevented an invasion, discouraged an invasion from a foreign army, a foreign nation. This is something that doesn't get talked about. And if we're talking physical security, open carry, concealed carry, just armed citizens in general carrying firearms in public could prevent and be not only an answer to terrorism and even invasion, but they could also be the cheapest solution. We talk about small government solutions all the time. What could be cheaper than having a militia that can be called forth at any given moment, that is based upon the citizens of the location that they're calling from, can be overseen by a commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, can coordinate all the militias together. The federal government can provide money for equipment and training and uniforms and all the other weapons, technology, all that stuff. Federal government can do all that stuff. That's fine. It's totally within their purview. Provide it to the states, or just allow the states to provide their own technology and all this stuff, all their own funding. That's fine. But what could be cheaper than that? We allow our federal government to provide an air force to defend our coasts and the interior, and we allow our government to have a navy to protect us from foreign invasion. But if somebody comes here, because what that's talking about is an overt invasion. If somebody comes here covertly and infiltrates, what's to stop them? What's to stop 7 people from killing about 500 people? The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. We say this all the time, and it's true. There's a reason why we say that. First of all, if this happened in America, I have a hard time believing that this many people would have died. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm way off base. I don't think I am. I think that a lot of people actually carry firearms here in America, and it's a lot easier to shoot people when they're not shooting back at you. And in addition to that, these people, they had escape plans. They wanted to get away. These terrorists who killed all these people in Paris, they wanted to get away. They had plans of escape. So that would imply that they don't necessarily want to die. Maybe it would discourage them from attacking us if, they only were able to kill 1 or 2 people before getting killed themselves. If this kind of attack wasn't producing these kind of results, do you think that they would repeat it? Probably not. Or at least they would be a little less excited about the results. However, 500 or so people dead and killed, dead and wounded, that's altogether roughly about 500 people, including the dead and the wounded, out of this attack. Of course they're gonna do this again because it worked. It really worked. And what they did is they did what these mass shooters have been doing. They're targeting soft targets. Anyway, we'll be right back after this break, guys. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this. I want to talk about the debt that we have incurred and how it is a national security threat in relation to war. And as well, I want to talk more about these refugees and immigrants. So we'll be right back after this break. Don't go anywhere.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hey, gang. All right, so where we left off here, we were last talking about national security and the real threats that affect it. We were talking about physical security. I was talking about how people with guns, armed citizens, a militia can protect the homeland. And I want to shift our focus here to debt. This is a real national security issue. This is something that we need to really address, and I don't think it's very conservative for people to continue to advocate putting boots on the ground in countries that the only reason why we're there is, one, again, to stick it to Russia, and two, to have access to this oil. I don't think that's very conservative. First of all, you're putting American lives in danger. In order to get involved in what you're saying is a humanitarian issue, for example, with the chemical weapons with Syria, or just to try to stabilize a region, when the real root cause of why we're there, again, is the oil. We could be energy independent. We've been talking about this for decades, but we've done nothing. Done nothing about it. Nothing at all. And obviously that would help us out of this debt because our GDP would be rising, we would be getting more money, yada, 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 all of that good stuff. But no, we're not doing anything about it. So let's talk about the debt. This is from the telegraph.co.uk. There is a credit crunch looming. According to the IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund, they're They're talking about a poisonous triad of global risks pushing the world to the brink of a new financial crisis, says stark IMF report. Now, this is very concerning. They're concerned that emerging market companies, by the way, this is an article written by Mahan Khan, or Marine Khan, sorry about that. Anyway, they're talking about emerging market companies have overborrowed $3 trillion in the last decade, reflecting a quadruple of private sector debt between 2004 and 2014. Found the IMF's Global Financial Stability Report. This dangerous over-leveraging now threatens to unleash a wave of defaults that will imperil any already weak global economy. This is bad. This is bad, gang. Things are about to hit the fan. The poo's about to hit the fan, y'all. So, what are we doing? What are we going to do? We're going to get involved in more wars? We're going to have more fronts of a war? Again, we're not addressing the root causes, which is important. It's important that we address the root causes. Why are we there? Energy. We can be energy independent. All we got to do is turn on the machine. That's it. Well, we can't be isolationists. You know, our allies will look to Russia to lead. Well, Russia's going to strong-arm them, and if we're not strong-arming them, our allies will stay with us, especially if we're exporting something, because we haven't had anything to export. We have had nothing. I want you to look back to the early, 2000s, late 90s, okay? They really believed. they really believed that we were going to export financial advice. That's what they believed. That was our future. We're not going to export any goods. No. We'll export economic advice, financial advice, because we're the world's richest country. We know what we're doing. Now, never mind the crash, the bubbles, all the stuff. Never mind that. Now we're screwed. Who the heck wants to get advice from us? Nobody. Nobody wants financial advice from us. That's ridiculous. So we have to produce something. In order to create wealth, you have to produce a good or a service. And if you're not going to be able to provide a service like financial advice, if you are in a financial crisis yourself, you're not going to be able to do that. So we'll finally have something to produce, and our allies will instead of turning to Russia, who's strong-arming them, will turn to us, who will be an alternative to that. So it's not isolationism by any means, by any stretch. But the wars are spending trillions and trillions and trillions, and it's just not conservative to continue to perpetuate endless wars that we can avoid even getting involved with if we just face the reasons why we're there. Again, the debt is a threat to us. It is a national security threat. Obama talks about climate change being the biggest threat to our national security. I disagree. I would say our national debt is. At some point, we're not going to be able to pay back even the interest on the loan that we've taken out. And when that happens, we default. And when we default, suddenly no one wants anything to do with our business. We'll definitely lose the world currency status. And again, all of this has been mentioned by John Kerry, saying, it's already being talked about. America losing the world currency status, the U.S. dollar no longer having world currency status, could actually happen. This isn't conspiracy fiction. It's conspiracy fact. It's already being discussed right now. By the way, FYI, in case you weren't aware, China and Sweden, they just had a deal. Sweden now is the 7th country that can buy, I believe, buy oil or buy the currencies, something along with that with China. I think that the yuan, they can transfer the yuan to buy oil now. That's what it is. So that's the 7th country that has this deal with China. And basically what they're doing is making a bid here. China is working slowly behind the scenes to make the yuan the world currency. and we were told this could never happen. Again, the same people that want to export financial advice keep telling us that things like this can never happen. No. You don't understand. You don't understand. It can never happen. Well, it's happened. It's happening. They don't base their information on facts, logic. They just go off of norms. Because something has never happened, they assume that it cannot happen. Anyway, and it's not even necessarily true. By the way, things in history have happened. They just fail to look at them. They distract themselves and obfuscate and say, oh, no, things were different then. Things were different then. Well, what's different? I can't quite put my finger on that. Anyway, so debt and war, big national security threats. Wars are draining our coffers. The debt, it just keeps growing from the wars. So how about we stop having wars? How about we stop the reasons for being there, which is energy. We focus on our allies and our physical security. We strengthen our allies, build better alliances, and cut some of the fat off of our alliances of people who are just interested in our dollars and not us. People who don't like us. And then also immigration. Immigration is a threat. Now, the same way that it's a threat for the European Union, the same thing that's happening. People can come up and sneak into your country and become a covert threat. They can attack you from within. You may not be able to protect that, defend against that. And here's the point. Here's the most important point that you need to take about it from the covert threat, from the Middle Eastern perspective, okay? What could possibly happen to us if we leave the Middle East? The biggest arguments are, okay, well, Russia will gain control of the oil. They could strong arm us and our allies for energy. Well, if we have an alternative to that, we can become an answer for it. We don't have to be in the Middle East for that. So that negates that argument. Okay, well, what's another thing that could happen? All right, well, if we leave the Middle East alone and we allow that power vacuum to be filled, they can have a state start to get really powerful, maybe develop nuclear weapons, send covert terrorists over here with nuclear technology, or just even without nuclear technology, maybe they're sending people in and attacking people with guns like they did in Paris. Well, I'll tell you, if people were carrying around firearms here in America, which we have a right to do, and if a president got on the television and on the internet and was saying, American people, not only do we not have an obligation as your government to protect you, but we don't have the ability. Again, that obligation thing, that's from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has ruled that the government does not have the obligation to keep you safe. You can't sue them if they fail to protect you. So, if I was a president, I would get up there and I would say, look, not only do we not have the obligation to protect you, but we also have the inability. We're going to do our hardest job of keeping you safe. We're going to protect you as best we can. But it's up to you to protect you. Ultimately, that's what it boils down to. It's up to you to protect you, your family, your community. You are responsible. You are going to be our eyes and our ears out there, and you're going to be responsible for keeping people safe. Now, I'm not advocating vigilante justice, but I am advocating that if you are being attacked or you see someone else being hurt, someone being killed, someone being deprived of their rights, it's your obligation as a citizen to help somebody. Now, I'm not saying you go Dirty Harry on everybody and just start shooting people. No, this isn't the Wild West. Use your judgment. Use the minimum amount of force necessary to resolve the issue. And honestly, I think that we would be a much safer society. I think, and that would be cheaper. That's much cheaper than any other solution that you're going to have. That is much cheaper. Now, I would encourage people to, go through firearm safety classes and whatnot, and I would encourage people to really understand how to use their weapons. That's important as well. But I think the best thing that we can do to fight terror and even external threats of foreign governments is for us to be armed. And we're still facing this covert threat. It's not like when we leave the Middle East, suddenly the threat to the homeland appears. No, we are already facing it. They're already outwardly trying to project their power and terror. So now we're just not fighting a war on two fronts. We're fighting at home, which we were already fighting at home. And if we have targets of opportunity that we know are sweet, target-rich environments, we'll just drop a little bomb over there or something. You know, if we know that we have the opportunity to do that. And again, you know, people are responsible for their governments, for their lack of governments. You know, and I'm not saying that you know, we go back to total war days where we're, you know, completely trying to destroy and take over a society. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want that. But if a government is acting tyrannical or trying to hurt other people, if a government is invading us, for example, let's say Russia, for example, all right? If Russia starts invading us or doing some kind of action against us, if the people of their country allow it to happen, it is the same as consenting. By not speaking out against it, it is consenting. You know, this goes with wow, I cannot believe I forgot his name. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold us unaccountable. You know, this is. I cannot believe I forgot that guy's name. Look up that quote. I can't remember who said that, but yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, so what I'm talking about, essentially, this all boils down to free market solutions. All right, this is all free market solutions to foreign aggression and the war on terror. And what this is called the Fabian strategy. We boil this down to one little point here, the Fabian strategy. Now, this is something that I'm extremely interested in, and I've been trying to figure out how to tie this in and how we can make this work. Because, again, if we're holding up, this isn't the same thing as us being isolationists, okay? Because let's talk about the definitions of isolationism and interventionism, okay? So first of all here, let's go ahead and open up dictionary.com. We got isolationism, the first one. Because, okay, you know, Republicans who are very pro-war, they would call you isolationist if you don't want to go fight in the Middle East, if you don't want to be involved over there. So first word, isolationism.
Isolationism.
This is a noun. It's the policy or doctrine of isolating one's country from the affairs of other nations by declining to enter into alliances. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. Foreign economic commitments. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that we engage in alliances that are fruitful, worthwhile alliances. And also international agreements. We'll have international agreements with our allies. We'll form our own sort of United Nations that respects sovereignty and human life and natural liberties, natural human rights. Anyway, so international agreements, etc., seeking to devote the entire efforts of one country to its own advancement and remain at peace by avoiding foreign entanglements and responsibilities. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we isolate ourselves. I'm saying that we further entrench ourselves with people that matter, and stop getting on the side of people that want to kill us, and stop trying to play world police and referee. It's not our job. We don't really care. The only thing that we care about is the oil. And let's be honest with ourselves. If we did care about people dying, then we would be in Africa. We would be in places where there's vast amounts of human suffering and very little standing in our way to prevent it and fix the problem. So let's look up interventionism. Interventionism. Here we go.
Interventionism.
The policy or doctrine of intervening, especially government interference in the affairs of another state or in domestic economic affairs. So I am calling for a middle ground, a moderate point of view, I suppose, but I would think this would be the most sensible, cost-effective, and safest way for us to live our lives. It's the Fabian strategy. And what this is, let me tell you the story behind the Fabian strategy. I love this story. I'm a big nerd when it comes to history. I love history, big history buff. You may have already figured this out. The Fabian strategy was developed by a Roman general. His name was Fabian. I think it was Flavius Fabian or Fabian Flavius, something like that. Anyway, he was. This is part of the Punic Wars, and Carthage. That was the country that was involved with the Punic Wars against Rome. Carthage and Rome had a conflict, and Hannibal, very famous and very successful Carthaginian general, decided to invade Italy. And when he did so, he kept outsmarting the Romans. He kept winning. He won every battle he fought. Everywhere they thought he would be, he was not. He was somewhere else. He was attacking where they were weak. He kept setting ambushes. He kept setting traps for them. He kept tricking them. He was a very, very smart general. And one thing that's actually said about Hannibal is that he knew how to win every battle, but he did not know how to win the war. And the reason for it is because Fabian, he actually created this strategy where they holed up. They harvested all their food and took all their resources inside behind their walls. And the Carthaginian army, they had no ability or desire really to siege, to actually build siege equipment and actually siege the city. They didn't want to actually attack the city. They wanted to attack targets of opportunity. Very similar to the way terrorists are attacking us here. They're attacking soft targets of opportunity. They're avoiding, as Hannibal did, they're avoiding a decisive battle. They don't want a decisive battle because they may lose. And if they continue to avoid that decisive battle and continue to harass us, then maybe we'll lose our will to fight, or maybe that they'll come up with some other tactical advantage somehow. Maybe they'll get lucky. So, I mean, that's what we did in the American Revolution. We did guerrilla war tactics to win the war. So, the British lost their will to fight. The only problem with this is that the terrorist in this case, Hannibal, if you want to call him that, if you want to associate him to that, they were invading a homeland of a country. And there is no breaking of will when it comes to invading somebody. They're not going to go anywhere. It's not like what it was when Britain was attacking, the American 13 colonies, because they had to have a will to keep fighting. They didn't already live there. You see what I mean? So it's not like they're fighting for their homeland. But in this case, the Romans, they live in Italy. This is where they live. All they have to do is wait you out. And your will, as Hannibal, Hannibal's will ended up faltering because he couldn't do any real damage. They burned the fields after they harvested, and they brought in all their supplies and equipment, and food, water. They stocked their fortresses up, and they hid behind their walls. And they outlasted the Carthaginians without fighting them. They outlasted them without fighting them. I think this is an important strategy when you really think about it. We don't have to create stability in the world. We don't have to. I think the stability will come, and we'll get to why. But this is the art of war. You defeat an opponent without fighting them. That is the best way that Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, suggested that you win in wars. You beat the opponent without fighting them. That's the most efficient way to win. So, how would this work? First of all, again, I've already described the situation. We pull out of the Middle East. We build up our own security here at home. We encourage our population to carry firearms for the protection of themselves or other people, their community. In addition to that, we produce our own energy. We unleash and deregulate the free market. That way that we can actually innovate, create. We can actually come up with technological breakthroughs that would get us completely off oil. Our climate crisis, as the left would like to say, could already be solved if we weren't regulating the crap out of ourselves. And in addition to that, one of the reasons why oil is so profoundly entrenched in our government is because government is responsible for it. They have created monopolies with oil companies in order to build roads. Government's in charge of roads. They build it the same way. They're not innovating. They're not coming up with new, different ways, more cost-effective or energy-efficient ways to build roads because they've got these monopolies with these oil cartels. So there's no benefit in it. That's why they don't innovate, because crony corporatism. So again, if we unleash and deregulate the free market, we'll solve most of the problems that we have. We'll solve them. Free people will solve them. And they'll do it better than the government ever could, because it'll be in a way that's not propping up bad ideas. The only ideas that exist and succeed in the free market are good ideas. Until they're not good anymore. Until they've gotten replaced, become obsolete, and then they crash down and something else is filling the void. Or maybe two ideas can exist simultaneously. I mean, this is the thing about the free market, is that it doesn't prop things up. Things exist on their own merit, or they don't exist at all. And yeah, there will be winners and losers, but that's life. I think we've made a huge mistake as a society the moment we started awarding children ribbons just for showing up. I mean, you are teaching the wrong lessons. There will be winners and losers in life. You can try to make yourself feel better, but the game of life will always have winners and losers. You can't change the outcome. And again, that's what the left tries to do. Is, Milton Friedman made this comment before, is that they're essentially trying to predict outcomes. They're trying to control the outcomes instead of control the beginnings, the what we all have innately, what the starting line is for us. Instead, they're more concerned that we both finish the race at the same time instead of worrying about we both start from the same point, which is a profound statement. I mean, this is what the left likes to do, is they like to control outcomes. They think they can manage everything. And if they screw it up, oh, well, those guys just didn't do it right. We'll try this. We'll try this one. This one will help. So there's a fine line between interventionism and isolationism, and I think the Fabian strategy could win. I think it could be effective. I think it could be cheap. I think it could be the way that will lead us to more freedom additionally. Because think about this, all right? The free market will create a demand for freedom in the world, not just in our country, all right? One of the main reasons why, markets have begun to open up and people have begun to intercommunicate with each other among countries, one of the main reasons this happened is because of American freedom. American freedom caused many countries, China included, to actually start to look towards this and figure out a way to use it to their profit in order to be competitive. That is exporting freedom. But furthermore, if we are truly free here at home and we're securing our country, we're deregulating and letting the free market, take control, we're helping our allies, and we're only drawing lines in the sand that we're prepared to fight and die for. We're not sending our young men and women to their deaths anymore for reasons they don't understand and don't care for people who don't care for them. We're going to be creating true freedom in this country. People free to contract how they wish. People free to go into businesses without the government controlling every single aspect of human life. And the fact is, if we do this, it will change the face of the earth. Not because we're intervening, but because slaves cannot compete with free people. Supply and demand, the laws of economics. Slaves cannot compete with free people. Governments are inefficient. So if a society is being oppressed by their government and the only technological advances are scientists working for the government, they're going to be less innovative and less effective, less efficient than the free market ever could be. So they're just not going to be able to compete. Slaves cannot compete against against free people. They just cannot. Governments are good at coming up with ways to kill people. For example, the Nazis, a very oppressive regime, they created they created rockets. They were the first ones to do that. Jet airplanes, first one to do that. Governments are great at creating weapons of war. They're not better than the free market, though, but they're still good at that because they understand it's important. But governments aren't really that interested in, or not really able to, depending on the government, in making their people's lives better. I just want you to look at a snapshot of Cuba. After we cut off relations with Cuba, they have essentially been frozen in time because their government is oppressive and it's not going to come up with any innovations on its own. Cuba is still where we cut off trade because they don't have free trade, they don't have free markets, and their government can't compete with freedom. That's all you have to do to look at and understand how this will export freedom around the world. Other countries will demand it from the ground up. Their people will demand that their government change because they cannot be competitive in the global markets. Our technology, our innovation, our intellect, our freedom will beat them at every turn. And that's how you export freedom. Instead of world building and trying to export democracy, which is not what we have. Anyway, we're going to cut to another commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be well into the third hour of the program. You guys don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore. With the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. We're in the third hour of the program. This is going to be more of a freestyle. We'll have some more openings for you guys. If you would like to call in, you want to join the conversation, feel free. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, 360-450-5625. Let us know what you got on your mind. What do you think about my conversation, the 2-hour rant that we just went in here about the Fabian strategy and its effects? I'm happy to talk to you guys about it. I've kind of had this epiphany about this because, again, I was concerned about leaving the Middle East alone because of the threat that Russia posed. What would have happened? What could happen? And then I realized the root of it is based upon this energy problem, and we have it. We have the energy here. And the other argument is that our allies will turn towards Russia for oil. Well, if we're offering oil too, if we're exporting oil, I mean, that helps us, first of all. But then again, it also helps our allies. It gives them another option. It gives our allies something else, another option of that somebody's not going to twist their arm. Again, governments can't compete with the free market. They just can't. As far as innovation, efficiency, it just can't compete. I mean, every single government program. Again, look at it. Look at the DMV. I just want you to look at the DMV. Is that an efficient process? Do you think that your time is being used wisely there? Do you think that this bureaucracy, this Leviathan is there to really help you and that it really cares? It really cares about you? No, it doesn't care. It takes forever. Last time I went to the DMV, I was there all day. What a waste of time. Unbelievable. It's all just to get some stinking license plates. You know, I mean, how hard is it to hand me license plates and write down my name or put it into a computer? That's my plate. How hard is that? It's ridiculous. Anyway, so we touched on this earlier. You know, people are responsible for their government. People are responsible for their government. You hear the saying that, you know, you get the government that you deserve, right? Well, in terms of the Fabian strategy, let's apply this out and let's actually war game this. And I really want to hear from you. The biggest reason why I do this show is to bounce ideas off people. And, you know, I love the interaction. I love people trying to use their intellect to solve problems. So what I'm talking about here is what could be a downfall of this, all right? How could this not work? What would be a problem? I mean, okay, so let's talk about the covert threats. You know, the covert threats, we'd still be getting attacked from terrorists. Yeah, that would still happen. They'd still be trying to kill us here at the homeland. All right, so that didn't change. None of that changed. The only thing that would matter now, though, is that we'll have more money and more resources to spend here at home to secure us further and to prevent these kind of attacks. And I think that'd be a good thing. So let's do a war game here with a conflict with Russia after the implementation of a Fabian strategy. Okay, let's look at this from that perspective. So let's say you know, we have an ally. Let's say Poland. I believe Poland is one of our allies that we're talking about. Building a missile defense system over there, and Russia really didn't like it, but it's in Poland. All right, this is Poland's sovereign territory. Russia doesn't like it because it poses a threat to them, but it wouldn't be necessary if it wasn't for all the strong arming that Russia continues to do. We see the annexation of Crimea. Again, you know, this is not a good actor on the world stage. Putin's trying to get the old Soviet band back together. He's trying to expand the territory, and you know, he's trying to flex Russian power. Now, I believe that Russia will fall into place somewhere when it comes to World War III, which I believe is looming. But I don't so much know where exactly they'll fall into play. Will they continue to be a geopolitical foe, or will they fall back in line of how they were in World War II? You know, we made a deal with the devil. We didn't necessarily like Russia, but we realized that the Nazis were worse. So we teamed up with Russia against the Nazis. I believe that the ISIS fighters, the jihadist terrorists, the radical Islamicists, I believe that they are worse than the Nazis ever were. And I think that if there is a World War III, it will probably be three players fighting in it. It'll be, you know, Russia and their allies, the United States and our allies, and ISIS. I think it'll be or at least radical Islam in one form or another. Maybe not necessarily ISIS. Maybe they'll call it another name, but a rose by another name is still a rose, right? Right. So, so in this three-way war, I don't know what could happen. This is my prediction. Now, again, I don't have a crystal ball. You know, this is just what I see. You know, based on following the news cycle and keeping my ear to the ground of what's happening around the world and seeing how these actors, when I say actors, I mean nations, are politically positioning themselves. I see what they're doing, and I know that what happened in Paris. It's going to cause Paris to really take the threat of radical Islam seriously. Hopefully, But I think it's going to cause them to get involved in Syria and trying to kill ISIS. I think they're already talking about doing that, of course. And again, this is one of those conversations. This is actually one of our topics, our featured topics, is that ISIS is making the same mistakes as the Nazis, and why it will be their downfall. So let's talk about that. We'll get back to this wargaming here in a second. As far as possible World War III scenario and conflicts with Russia, conflicts in the war on terror with the Fabian strategy. We'll get back to this in a second. But ISIS right now is following, to the letter, their ideology. If you are a non-believer, they're allowed to kill you, and they should kill you. In fact, they're compelled to kill you by their ideology. So, if you are a radical Islamist, a radical jihadist, which I guess if you're an Islamist or a jihadist, you are, in definition, radical. Again, there's a difference between a Muslim and an Islamist. Somebody who can be living peacefully among you and someone who cannot be, someone who believes the literal interpretation of the Hadith and the Quran, that they can kill you, they can lie to you, they can rape your women, they can do whatever they want because you are subhuman. You are not. You're a non-believer. You do not matter. You're an infidel, and therefore your life means nothing. So they're making the same mistakes that the Nazis made. If, in fact, they did shoot down the Russian plane, they have only stoked the fires of Russia to get involved against them. Again, they had a pretty sweet deal set up with Russia already. I mean, it was bound to change, but Russia wasn't really attacking ISIS too much. I mean, at least not focusing heavily on them. Russia was more focused on going after the rebels, the American-backed rebels. So they were trying to get rid of all. Russia was trying to get rid of all American influence in Syria. And they were leaving. I mean, they were attacking ISIS, but they were leaving them alone when compared to what they were doing to the rebels. Then ISIS goes and attacks Russia. I don't think it's going to go well. If that in fact happened, I think you're poking a bear. Sorry for the pun there, but I think that's going to cause a problem. They're opening the war on too many fronts. They're fighting Assad. They're obviously ISIS is ideologically in opposition to Israel. So one day they will turn their focus to them, I'm sure. In addition to that, they have now poked France and bloodied their nose, and France is gonna be wanting some retribution. And this is no different than what happened with the Nazis. Again, the Nazis they invaded Poland, and they had a front on the Western Front that they were pushing out and trying to take over Europe. And Hitler just could not resist himself. He couldn't resist attacking the Russians. He just couldn't. Even though it was winter, and historically, armies who attack Russia in the winter are doomed to fail, but he didn't seem to care about that. He wanted to open up another front. He just could not resist. He couldn't wait. So he attacked Russia. So now he's fighting Europe and he's fighting Russia. And then what do? Oh, they side with the Japanese after Pearl Harbor. And now they have America against them as well. So this is a very similar situation. And you're going to see this, I believe. Jihadists are going to spark more hatred from Europeans. Jihadists are going to cause Europeans to get involved in the Middle East. And this is why I don't think that we need to be involved in this. There's going to be too many actors in play in this small little area of the world. What are we doing? What are we thinking? If you're talking about World War III, if you really want to prevent World War III, get out of the Middle East. Get out of the Middle East. bomb the living hell out of it as far as I'm concerned, but get out of it. Don't put a foot on the ground if you don't have to. And if you do put the foot on the ground, have it be to kick some terrorist in the ass, excuse my language, and get out. That is what you have to do. No nation building. I do not believe, unless it's our nation, unless it's one of our allies' nation. Let's nation build that. And you know what? If your country, this brings us back to the point of people being responsible for their countries. You're responsible for your government. If your government attacks ours, and we beat you, we're not going to nation build you. I don't think that we should nation build you back up, help you out, give you your land back either. I think if you attack us and you lose, sorry, buddy, what's yours is mine. That's the way I look at it. I know a lot of people won't like that, and a lot of people will think that's wrong. And just don't get involved in conflicts. If you don't want your land taken from you, don't get involved. I'm sure so many people out there are disagreeing with me right now. But this is the problem that they had with the Palestinians. What Israel had, they gave back huge tracts of land from Jordan and Egypt. They gave this crap back. All this land that they took in the 1967 war, they gave it back for the promise of peace with the Palestinians. And what do they get? Suicide bombings. Oh, yeah, okay, well, we gave you back your land. You kill us, even though you promised peace, or at least, that was the attempt of promising peace. But okay, let's, now you want to take the West Bank back. I'm sorry, well, now I don't remember. But, the littler section that's supposed to be the Palestinian two-nation solution. I can't remember that. I think it's the East Bank? Is that what it is? Anyway, in Gaza Strip. But I digress. Anyway, so they want to get more land back now, and the promise of peace then was not upheld, and they want more land now. Again, I don't agree with this. Look, if you attack, if it was up to me and I was Israel, I would have never given that land back. This is just me. I would have never. Those people want to annihilate Israel. There's so much anti-Semitism in that region, all stemming from the fact that they think that they have the right, the duty to kill the Jews. Anti-Semitic. By the way, FYI, in case you weren't aware, they sided with the Nazis. So there's that. They sided with the Nazis. I don't really feel sorry for people who side with Nazis. That's just me. I mean, if any of you out there do side with Palestinians, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that I don't side with Nazis. So, and as far as taking the land and keeping it, I think that's punishment. I mean, look, you placed a bet. We've lived in this world where we have these international norms that we don't. It's not really the way the world actually is. There are bad people in the world playing this Game of Thrones. Russia is one of them. Russia is going to try to take new territory. Russia will do what they can to take new territory, and they don't care about the civilian populations involved. They don't care about the level of oppression that they have to do. But again, people are ultimately responsible for their governments. Now, now let's go back to wargaming here. If we have a conflict with Russia, all right, after implementing a Fabian strategy, if Russia's, we implement something in Poland and Russia attacks, our interest over there, or our allies, or one of our friendly countries over there in Europe that would have agreed to an alliance with us, and we decide that we're going to we draw a line in the sand. Look, some things are worth fighting for. And if you don't believe that, then I can't really have this discussion with you. If you don't believe that anything is worth fighting for, then nothing is worth fighting for. And, if somebody pulls a gun up on you, you're just going to let them shoot you in the head? Or a knife, you're going to let them stab you? None of this matters. You're just going to choose to die. You choose death. You're not going to resist at all. Okay. Well, I would disagree. I don't understand that logic. I can't. Maybe this is my inefficiency to understand you, my deficit of intellect, but I don't understand that, and I won't. I'm not going to be able to understand that. I can tell you right now. So the choice of die or fight, I will fight. And if I have made an alliance with somebody, I'm not going to make that. I'm not going to enter into an alliance lightly, and I don't think that we should. So again, we need to reset on foreign policy, draw the lines in the sand on what we're really prepared to fight for. And if Russia crosses those lines, then be prepared to fight. There's no sense in drawing these arbitrary lines in the sand if we do nothing when they are crossed. That's why you don't draw arbitrary lines. That's why you don't draw red lines that don't matter. The American people don't want to fight Syrians or the Assad regime because they use chemical weapons, and we made that clear. That's why we stopped the invasion the first time into Syria. Now they're spooling up for another invasion into Syria in order to stop ISIS. We don't have to invade in nation build to stop ISIS. What we could do, rush in, kick their butts, leave. Once they start up again, rush in, kick their butts, leave. If we have to do that 50 times, I don't really give a damn. I don't. It doesn't matter. As many times as you have to kill cockroaches, you keep killing cockroaches. So, I know I sound like a hawk, but I only think that we fight for things that we actually care about, and we fight for things that are worth fighting for. And if ISIS is really one of those things that you want to stop, that's how you do it. That's how I would do it. If I was trying to stop ISIS, I would not try to nation build. I would not try to have bases that we maintain. I would just rush in, destroy them, rush out. And if they kept coming back, I would do the same thing. I'd rush in, destroy them, rush out. That's exactly what I would do, unless they change their tactics or something. But again, we have to look at our tactics. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting to get different results, but all we have is more of the same, and it keeps getting worse. The situation keeps getting further destabilized. And now we're bringing in other parties. Russia is now interested in the area. Russia now has a foothold in the area now through the Assad regime. We have their proxy, Russia's proxy of Assad. Our proxy, which doesn't really exist much anymore thanks to the Russian bombing, but our proxy of the rebels. Again, we're trying to choose a side here. Who do you choose? What you're picking a bad actor in this scenario, no matter what, because besides the Kurds you can live beside without worrying about them killing you. Probably, I would assume so, unless they're lying to us. I don't know, but The issue here with the Muslims that are leaving and fleeing, these refugees that are leaving Syria, I think it's interesting that this actually brings me back to another historical battle. It was the battle of, I believe it was Vercingetorix and Caesar. They were fighting on the top of this giant mountain in Gaul. It had a mountain fortress, and basically Caesar surrounded it after Vercingetorix went up into he's the Celtic leader. Basically, he combined the tribes in Gaul, which is now modern day France. Oddly enough, that we're talking about that. Anyway, Caesar chased him up into this fortress and surrounded it. Started doing a trench. He built a big trench of fortifications and basically encircled this mountain. Huge earthworks. I mean, this guy, Caesar, he had engineers that were, this is a modern marvel at the time, being able to do this, and the amount of time that he did it as well. So he circled this place up, and eventually what happened is Vercingetorix in this mountain fortress had a bunch of civilians in there, and he was like, hey, we're going to send the civilians out because they're eating our food and taking up our resources, and we just don't need them here, so we're going to send them out, and hopefully Caesar will let them go or take them himself. And Caesar said no. He sent them back. And they were stuck in this no man's land for a real long time. Eventually, Vercingetorix ended up taking them in out of it because he had no choice. He had to take them. Caesar clearly wasn't going to do that and didn't care if these people died. Anyway, Caesar's reason for that is he realized that these people were a drain on resources. In order for him to take in these refugees, which is essentially what they were, it would be draining his resources instead of his opponent's resources. And that's what's going on right now, people. The ISIS is very clever indeed. And so are the surrounding Arab nations. Because, as was pointed out by Andrew Clark, he was our first caller here on the show. He says he just wanted to make a point about the majority of Muslim countries that are closer to the Syrian region that are refusing to take in fellow Muslim refugees. Yet they have spent millions of dollars for Western countries to help these refugees. Well, it should be important to note that nationally, ethnically, and just culturally, these people in Syria are far closer to these Arab nations that surround them that refuse to take them in than the remainder of Europe. I mean, if you're talking about culturally, the culture difference between a European and an Arab from this part of the world is drastic. But it's not so much drastic between, the difference between a Syrian and an Egyptian, or a Syrian and a Jordanian, or you see what I'm getting at. The fact that they won't take in their own fellow Muslim refugees, people that are like them, and that they have they talk about Arab unity all the time, especially when they're talking about anti-Semitic hate towards Israel. Arab unity. But in this case, it's not about unity. You have to ask yourself why. Again, I always come back to why. Why are they doing what they're doing? Why would the Saudis, why would Egypt, why would Jordan, why would these other countries who are fellow Arabs, fellow Muslims, why would they refuse refugees of people that are like them? Why? And why would they expect us in Europe to absorb that huge 800,000 people population? First of all, I think it's a way to camouflage infiltrators, which we've seen what happened in Paris. Secondly, it's a drain on resources. It's the no man's land. It is Vercingetorix versus Caesar, sending people to drain resources. And we're falling for it. If we take in refugees like this, we're falling for this. And how do you tell the difference between a good Muslim and a bad Muslim? Because there is good Muslims and bad Muslims. We've talked about this entire show. We've been talking. How do you tell the difference? I mean, you have to check them. We have no reliable way of doing that right now to see if they have any verifiable links to terrorism. How do you tell? How do you tell? Well, I'll tell you the few refugees that I would say that we, as a humanitarian cause, if you want to be humanitarian, we can help, and we can pretty much know that they're not jihadist terrorists who want to kill us. Those are the Christians in the Middle East. The Christians that are being massacred in what is easily another Holocaust. I mean, this is easily a new Holocaust that we're facing. Instead of the Jews, now it's Christians. Maybe it'll be the Jews again. But I find that highly unlikely that Israel will allow themselves to be slaughtered, at least not without a fight. Israel's already said that they will not allow a new Holocaust, at least on their people. So, again, the world is spinning out of control. If we allow ourselves to absorb this 800,000, and again, I'm using globally the word ourselves. I'm not Europe, and I don't have anything to do with their policies, and they can choose to do whatever they want. But as far as us absorbing our share of these refugees, these 800,000 refugees, we're talking about next year taking in 10,000 of them. I have a fundamental disagreement with this. I don't know how you feel. I would love to hear from you about this, and let me know. Let your voice be heard. But I would like to say that there is something that you can do right now, And I would highly recommend that you guys do this here. I'm grabbing the number for you right now. Okay, you can actually call the U.S. Capitol first thing Monday morning and let them know that you oppose Syrian refugees in the United States. Let them know that you think they should take the Christian refugees because they don't pose a threat to us. We don't have to worry about Christians trying to kill us and perform jihad on us, all that stuff. Take the Syrian Christian refugees, but oppose Muslim refugees in the United States until we have a way to determine friend from foe. The number is 1-202-224-3121. Again, that number, I'm going to wait a second for you to get a pen in case you're chasing it down. If you're like me, you're probably scrambling around. Okay, I got my pen. Now I'm looking for a piece of paper. Oh, crap. Where do I keep all my paper? Suddenly I forget where all my paper was. So I'm repeating the number again now. Again, this is for the U.S. Capitol switchboard. The number is 1-202-224-3121. The operator will ask you what state and transfer you to your senator and your state representative. It takes about 2 minutes. About 2 minutes to go through this process, and this is shared by one of our posters on our group on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/OnTheMoveShow. His name is Daryl. So thank you, Daryl, for that. And again, that number is 1-202-224-3121. You can call first thing Monday morning and let them know to oppose all Syrian refugees except for Christians, because we can guarantee that they are not trying to kill us. And they're the ones that are being targeted by ISIS for assassination. They're the ones that are being murdered massively. They're involved in a new Holocaust. They're the victims of this right now, and we could do something to help them, but we can't determine friend from foe, so we can't help anyone else. I think it puts us in danger to do so. So, okay, let's go back here. Let's get back on track. People are responsible for their own government. So, if we're involved in a conflict with Russia, and let's say Russia attacks one of our allies or something, if that was a line in the sand that we thought was worth dying for, then we have to fight. And I don't really understand people who don't get that there are some things that are worth fighting for. There are some lines that if your enemy crosses or your opposition crosses, you have to retaliate. So, if that is one of those lines that we've already predetermined that it was worth fighting for, then we have to fight for it. And people are responsible for their government. So we could get on the TV, get on the internet, get on the radio, drop pamphlets, beg the Russian people to change their government, stop them from what they're doing, prevent the loss of life, and prevent them from going to war. But if the people of Russia don't do anything about it, if they refuse to act to change the way that their government is acting, then we can't do much for them. We can't really help them. So we have to defend ourselves, our interests, our friends. Some things are worth dying for, even if we lose, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I would rather die free. If we were really being faced with conquering, if another country out there was trying to actually conquer us, if the caliphate spread and literally became a force that was sweeping across the world, and it was a worldwide caliphate, and it was just us versus them, I'd rather die than surrender to them. Some things are worth fighting for, even if you lose. So, let's war game the war on terror. After a Fabian strategy, we'd still be facing threats internally. We'd have to worry about our own security. We'd be safer because our citizens would be armed. We'd be safer because we'd have our power grid, protected, hardened from an EMP attack. The only concern that I have with this is the fact that border security and whatnot would obviously have to be increased in the situation, which I don't see any issue with a increased border security presence. I do have an issue with the wall, but I was thinking about this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't so much have an issue with the wall as long as we have some guarantees constitutional guarantees that we cannot be prevented from leaving. So, but I don't know how this would work if, in terms of trying to capture terrorism suspects or something, if you don't want them to leave the country. You know, I can see some emergency war power or something being passed, and then they could easily just lock us in, you know. So that's why I have an issue with the wall in general. It's just because I don't like the whole idea that if we want to leave, we could be prevented from leaving. The exits could be blocked. So I'm going to continue to think on this a little bit more, but I don't like the idea of a wall. I could maybe tolerate it if it was coupled with a constitutional amendment prohibiting the government from restricting access out. The wall should be used to restrict access in, not out. But I still don't know if I trust the government to even have the wall in the first place. I'm very concerned about the police state, and I know a Fabian strategy could potentially be misused and lead to that. But I think if you're not looking for the government to the answers in regards to the Fabian strategy, if you're looking to empower the people to be their own defense, not only is it more efficient, but you're less likely to turn that into a police state, because each individual citizen is empowered rather than centralizing power. And here's actually an interesting point that should be noted here. Statists, they're not really anti-gun when you think about it. You know, they're not really anti-killing either. They're not anti-force. They're not anti-weapons. They're just not. They're just anti-you having weapons. They're anti it being decentralized. They're anti the average citizen being empowered with the same ability that the government has. What they really want is the government to have the monopoly of force. What they really want is the government to be the only ones with guns, which means they're the only ones who kill. That's what they want. So they're really not for gun banning. They're for gun centralization. When you really break it down to fundamentals, to the root of what it is, again, they're not really against guns because they want the government to have guns. Unless you're talking about crazy kids like in college. Oh, this is a good one, by the way. I had this story last episode that I wanted to get to. This is hilarious. Here, let's go ahead and enter into a Mac Attack segment, and we'll wrap up the show after this here. Here we go.
It's time for the Mac Attack!
Alright, this is where I report about outrageous events in the news, so if you have anything you'd like to join in on the conversation, feel free to do so. Number of the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. And this is a countercurrentnews.com article. It is titled, University Students Form Massive Protest to Disarm Cops. This article is dated October 26, 2015. So, essentially, I'm not going to actually read this article here. I just wanted to read you the headline and your comments actually on it from Facebook. Essentially, what it boils down to is the university has a gun-free zone policy. It is a gun-free zone. And what they want is to disarm the police on their campus. So, again, this is one of those weird situations where these guys are actually anti-gun. They don't even want the government to have the guns in this certain circumstance. However, it is so stupid. It is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. And by the way, I think Dee, one of our listeners here, can actually sum this up with her comment. The stupidity hurts my brain. So I'm going to read a few of these comments here. Lou says, is this the result of decades of pushing the liberal agenda, using their platform, media, school indoctrination, and yes, even the Catholic Church to push their agenda, anti-gun? These kids that have heard their whole lives how bad guns are. The gun's not the fault. The gun's the fault, not the person. They're afraid of the sight of the gun. I grew up in the 70s. If they had to put security in school, it would have been welcomed. Anyway, gun-free zones are the problem, in my opinion, and I think we better start thinking about their future. If these sickos know where to take out people and die in a blaze of glory, how long will it be till they are a target of jihad? We've already had 2 already. This is before. By the way, this is very timely. He said this on November 7th. Lou said this on November 7th. This is before the Paris attacks. He goes on to say, I don't think that there's any way around it. The gun-free zones have to go. Well said, Lou. I really have to say, well said. These are soft targets. These are kill zones. These are fish in a barrel zones is what they should really be called. Victim zones. This does nothing to stop people from entering the zones. Just because you posted a sign, again, what are you going to do? Are you going to get him in even more trouble for bringing a gun into the zone for the purpose of killing somebody, a jihadist terrorist? Are you going to really throw the book at him because he murdered people? Because in addition to murdering people, he violated your little sign ordinance as well? Is that what's going to happen? No. And again, France, very, very strict gun laws. Very strict gun laws. The whole country is a gun-free zone. Yet they managed to get Kalashnikov AK-47s in there. It's not legal. It's not legal to have them, as far as I understand it. And definitely the way that they got them. They got them from somewhere else. They didn't get them from a store. They didn't buy them from a friend. I can guarantee you that. Unless you're talking about another jihadist. So, where could they have got it? Could it be the black market? Yes, I think so. This is what happens when you make things illegal. They don't go away. The only way to make something go away is to eliminate the demand for it. How do you eliminate the demand for guns when there's still people dying? There's still people being attacked. People still have the right to defend themselves. You want to get rid of guns, you really do something about the violence. You eliminate the demand. That's how you do that. You eliminate now again, there will always be people who want guns. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to get to a utopian society to where no one will ever need to defend themselves personally. I mean, maybe we'll evolve. I don't know. But I think the world would be a better place if we all just lived by the non-aggression principle. Just had respect for other people's natural human rights. I think we'd be a lot better off. We wouldn't need firearms if we all did that, but couldn't hurt to have them, right? Plus, I mean, firearms great for hunting too. Even though that's not what it's about, it's still great for hunting. Anyway, so let's see. We got another comment here. That's stupid from Georgianne. Larkin says government employees shouldn't have lethal arms. That is why we have the Second Amendment. Armed government equals tyranny. And Carrie, she says, voices, not violence. What, is she going to use her voice to stop a criminal? Good luck with that. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is the lunacy behind it. They think that they are safer hiding behind signs, and they don't understand. They don't even understand the ones that are actually talking about disarming everyone and like truly anti-gun. You have that movement in there. The ones that are really that afraid of guns, they don't even want to be protected by guns. So they'll end up like the people in France. Sorry, I'm not trying to be cold-hearted here, but if something happens, if someone with a gun comes after them, and no one can come after the bad guy with a gun because all of the good guys, to include the government even, have been disarmed, who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop the terrorists? Who's going to stop the people who are killing people? Who's going to stop the criminals? Who's going to stop the crazy nut jobs who are just killing people just to kill people? The people who shooting up movie theaters and stuff. Who's going to stop them if even the police don't have guns? Who? Well, you just hoping that they run out of bullets eventually and get tired, maybe take a nap, and what do you think is going to happen? Look, I'm not for disarming the citizenry in favor of arming the government. What I'm saying is that you wouldn't need the government to be armed if the citizens were allowed to be armed. You wouldn't need to have such a heavy police presence. Maybe you could in some of the higher crime areas, but you wouldn't need it as much. We wouldn't be as reliant on it either. We would be more self-sufficient. We'd be more accountable. Again, the government doesn't have a duty to protect you. You know, you give all your faith into this government to protect you, and it doesn't even have an obligation? It doesn't even make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. But I digress. So let's see. Let's see if we got any other points here before we wrap up the show. Yeah, I think we pretty much hit it all. I think we pretty much covered everything. It's been a pretty long show. I feel like I've been just jabbing on about stuff today. Let's see here. We've got a few other articles here that I could get to. You know, I'll actually, one last thing here. Especially in regards to Paris, this is something that's bothering me, and this is from a video that I posted on YouTube. A comment was made on the video, and this video is about the trial that I had, my unlawful arrest, where I was arrested for open carrying a firearm in an open carry state. I was actually originally arrested for trespassing on a public sidewalk, which is impossible. It's public property. It's owned by the public. So you can't trespass on it. Anyway, I'm still in the process. My appeal is ongoing for this case. Anyway, the trial that I posted was from last year's trial. And I was actually blamed, essentially, is what I'm getting from this gentleman. His name is John, and gentleman may be a stretch of the name, stretch of the imagination. But John tells me that let's think about what you've just said. And this is talking about open carry. Again, my case is about open carry. And I didn't really say anything, but we'll just... I don't know what he's saying I said, because the video, I don't actually speak in this video at all. So I don't know what he's talking about. I think he's just going off of the point of me open carrying. So I digress. He says, John says, let's think about what you've just said. 80 people just got shot at a concert in France. You, as a country, have had a catalog of gun massacres. So let's break that down here, first of all, okay? You as a country. Well, I am not a country. I'm assuming he's talking about the United States, which would imply that he's not an American. I just want to point out, if you're not an American, shut the hell up. Shut the hell up about our gun rights. If you're not an American, shut up. Shut up. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I'm not interested, all right? This is one of the few times where I tune people out, all right? But for the sake of argument, I didn't even bring this up, by the way, in my retort to him, okay? I just allowed him to get by with that. We'll just ignore that part. But seriously, he needs to shut up. Anyway, so he says 80 people just got shot in a concert in France, and you, as a country, have had a catalog of gun massacres. Exclamation point. Like, we're the only country in the world that has had people who've been killed. And let me just point out, between 1900 and the year 2000, there's been approximately 250 million people that were killed. By what? By government. Not by some guy shooting up a parking lot, some guy shooting up a movie theater. By government. Governments have killed in this century, or I'm sorry, in the 20th century, about 250 million people. So I think we got bigger fish to fry. But, you know, again, 80 people shot in France. We are apparently the only ones that have these kind of things happen. But you just said that France had that happen, and France is very strict on gun rights. But anyway, gun crime is a daily event in most states, according to him. Your country has one of the highest murder rates in the world, and you think it's acceptable in today's society, the way the world is today, for everyone to walk down the street with their gun out. Please, you want to play with guns, go back in the service and do some good. Join a security detail. Stop wasting your time and the state's time on this bull. You were in the wrong. Move on. Okay, so I was in the wrong, apparently, according to this gentleman. for open carry in an open carry state. I wasn't violating any laws. I wasn't threatening anyone. I was just minding my own business, trying to talk to people about gun rights, create awareness about gun rights and gun laws. So I respond to him. I say, John, the people of France have been disarmed. A handful of terrorists were able to wound and kill approximately 500 or so people. If even a small amount of the victims had been armed, perhaps there would have been less death. Perhaps it could have been stopped. Instead, you advocate disarming people who are not hurting anyone, which only serves to make them softer targets for terrorists who want to kill them. And laws do nothing to protect them from. Again, France already has strict gun laws, and it did nothing to protect them from violence. John retorts. He says, point taken. Did you think it was necessary to walk down a public highway with a rifle? Well, I never have ever walked down a public highway with a rifle, so I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe if you put yourself in the police's, I guess that's how he spells police's, police's or the public's shoes, they thought you were a terrorist. And in effect, you have made your own point defunct. You're lucky the cops were good at their jobs and didn't put you down. Okay, well, I was not violating any laws. I was not threatening anyone. If someone thought that I was a terrorist, that's on them. You know, I'm not going to apologize for stupid. You know, I'm just not. I'm not going to apologize for stupid people. And if you can't tell the difference between a guy with a gun who's walking around with a camera in one hand and a drink in another, smiling and waving at people, talking to people, not pointing his gun at anybody, not touching his gun in any way, and terrorists who are, you know, jumping out of cars with AK-47 shooting people, if you can't tell the difference between that, then you're dumb. You are just dumb. And I'm sorry. I'm not gonna apologize for your stupidity. Sorry, John. He goes on. I keep seeing this phrase, when you guys come for my guns, you're coming for my freedom. Expect an appropriate response. The problem with this pithy quote is the false conflation between owning a gun and being free. We all accept a certain degree of control in our day-to-day lives in return for a society in which we can live and grow. We give up certain freedoms in return for other, more beneficial returns. None of us are free. We have agreed to live within a framework of various rules and regulations because the gains outweigh the losses. This framework is called society, and it is subject to change. This is called progress. So yes, they may come for your guns, and it won't make you any less free because you aren't free. You never have been. You've only ever been deluded. Wow. Okay, so this is the other side, guys. This is the other side, gang. The veil has been lifted. Now, here's what I said to him. I feel like I try to keep it cool. Try to play it cool. You know me, right? Anyway, I do not accept the limitations of my freedom. If you do, that's okay, but I do not. I advocate for more freedom because the so-called, and I'm using air quotes here, benefits I get from giving up my rights are not beneficial at all. The problems that arise from limitations of freedoms are always worse than the original problem they were intended to cure. We have edged further and further toward the abyss, listening to statists like yourself who promise us a utopia. But in order to get there, we have to sacrifice our liberty. Then after we give some liberty, we're told that it's not enough. The fact is, it will never be enough because your ideas stink. They restrict the free market, stifle innovation, decimate jobs, destroy the middle class, create victimless crimes, perpetuate poverty, and prevent people from being able to defend themselves from nut jobs. We've tried your ideas and they have failed miserably. Now we need to get back to core principles. The way forward is through the non-aggression principle and the respect for natural human rights. I'll leave you with this quote from Patrick Henry. Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what the course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. think that's a good point for us to wrap up the show today. You know, there's going to be times when you're going to be standing on your own. But know that if you're standing on your own and you're standing with principle or for your principles, you're not alone at all. There's others out there that believe what you believe. And ultimately, I think that freedom is going to prevail. I think that statism will run its course. And all it will take is for one country to truly try to become competitive. We've tried all of these other systems, these manipulating systems where we try to manipulate markets, people, the world. And they've been a failure. They've been a massive, massive failure. I think it's important that we actually try to be free. And if just one country is truly free, the outcome is going to be tremendous, because the other countries will have to become more free in order to be competitive in the free market. They'll have to be. Anyway, that's our show for today. I hope you guys liked it. If you liked it, message me on Facebook, facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Message me on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. Let me know what you thought about today's show. You know, I really thought really hard about this episode. I wanted to try to make you guys think about solutions and root causes rather than let's just deal with a symptom. Instead of dealing with the root cause, let's deal with the symptom. That's what the media and the focal point madness that they do. You know, that's how they obfuscate and blur the lines. I didn't want to play that game anymore. So, what do you guys think? Do you think that my ideas can work? Do you have ideas of your own? Add to the conversation. I want to hear from you. Also, if you made it this far, if you've listened to 2 hours and 54 minutes of me up here talking, then I would certainly appreciate it if you would share the show. You know, you guys, members of the MacPack, you guys are the reason why we do this, and you're the way that this show will grow. You know, talking about it with your friends and family, sharing it on your social media, that means a lot. And if you made it this far, you're the tip of the spear anyway. So I just want to say thanks so much for listening. You guys are awesome. I want to give a shout-out to Andrew Clark for calling in. And a shout-out to our intern, Mark Delphine. He couldn't make it today, but he's going to be back with us. Anyway, without further ado, I really appreciate you guys for tuning in week after week. We broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can check us out at our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. Give a shout-out to the 405media.com for simulcasting the first hour of the program. Please follow us at Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can follow us on iTunes. We're on there as well. Don't forget to leave us a review. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.